ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Greetings, the Earthlings. How are you? It's your favorite host of the headliners, Mikey Tim, and Tim is in jail. I removed the ice. I said he is 1/8 Puerto Rican, and they are right now sending him in the belly of a cargo ship to San Juan, where he will have an enjoyable time with lovely people. No, he's I don't know what he's doing, but he said he was going to be late. But that's fine.
We wish him all the best.
Oh, he says, hey, I might be 30 minutes late currently at NYC. That was at 9 a.m. So that was 2 hours ago. He says, let's say an hour late. I'm still on the road. Oh, poor Tim.
His NYC is in New York City. He's currently there. But
yeah, he's out in Connecticut. So
so that's getting out of New York City at any time of day or night is a interesting logistical challenge.
I just sent him a picture of us having fun, and I said, ha, 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 ha. Hello.
We can always catch on the replay. Hello, folks. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Hello, my dear friends out there. We got Billy and Gina and Kay and Russell. And everyone, I have my bestest, favoriteest internet person ever, the mathematician, the star watcher, the vice mayor and mayor pro temp, the all-around good dude, Landon Noll.
Oh, thank you very much for the horn introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone, latitude, and level of uranium enrichment.
And how many neutrons you have?
Yes, you have a few neutrons. Just where they're put and what they're doing. That's the key.
So today
how you doing there? By the way, happy Father's Day to the dude who walks the talk. He's Papa Supreme.
I'm trying to do my best, and she is a little stinky monster, but boy, she was watching Disney on Disney Plus. They have this like Broadway Sings Disney or something like that. So you got like professional like some singers up there, and they are killing the classics. They got like the Beauty and the Beast classics, Little Mermaid, all the stuff. And there's like one like ballad in Beauty and the Beast, and little Mama was in there singing it. She's 2, and she was with her arms and stuff like that, trying to like do the vibrato. I cried. I recorded it, and then I watched it back, and I cried, and I was
excellent.
like, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're making a singer. We're doing it. It's happening.
Yeah. And I would encourage a kid to get some voice lessons early on as a kid, even if they don't go into that thing, because the ability to sing, the ability to go into a restaurant and sing happy birthday without risking life and property in people's ears.
There's so much.
She can do it. She can do that. Now, here's, by the way, Mikey, here's the thing. 2 decades from now, you think about all this interaction you have with this minor unit that's moving from the larval stage to the minor unit stage, right? And 2 decades from now, when she is fully independent and she happens to call you on the phone, say, hey, Dad, blah, 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 you will be so amazed. My daughter called me, and you'll call your other friends saying, hey, I got a call from her. I didn't have to call her. She came and called me. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So happy Father's Day, sir.
Thank you so much. It is the greatest, scariest responsibility I've ever had, and I've never been more excited.
Yay.
We're into the wild blue yonder together.
Yes.
Me getting hit by all the sticks and her laughing hysterically. So we got a lot of stuff for you guys to talk about, or for us to talk about today. Tim is going to come in a little bit later, it sounds like. So we'll get to some Tim related stuff, and we'll talk about the protests, and Landon will hang out for all that stuff. But since I have Landon to myself, what we're going to do off rip is, if you guys haven't heard, things have officially kicked off between Israel and Iran. The strikes have been ongoing for days now. So what I noticed and what I learned from Landon maybe 3 or 4 years ago, Landon did a really awesome Nuke episode, Patreon episode for old patrons. You guys have seen it already. And if you're a new patron, you can go check it out. It's like the third thing we ever posted. It's way back there. I think I can pin that stuff or repost it. I'll see what I can do. But I went into the news with like this background level of knowledge about how anyone would enrich uranium to make like a nuclear power plant, or to make bombs, or to like Landon went through this, and it was about 3.5 hours. Like I'm talking about, we went neutron by neutron. I'm not exaggerating. So this isn't an endorsement of any sides, because that's not what this talk is about. This talk is about the science of uranium. Cool. You guys understand? Everybody cool? Everybody get it? Cool. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Landon.
Yeah. So also I would say as well, for their I would encourage you to become a patron, if nothing else, because of the archive this show has. That particular show we did is actually about half the material, which is nuclear weapons, and give you a background. Is all unclassified stuff. I have all the open sources there, but it is an important thing to give you an understanding about nuclear weapons, and it's important for you to understand them, because it is very likely, unfortunately, that in your lifetime, or especially in your kid's lifetime, there will be nuclear weapons used in warfare. Sadly, we're heading towards that thing, and this is one example of that. By the way, Mikey, there's a second half of that material, and there's a half I hope I don't have to give, which is when a nuke has gone off, what happens, and what are the effects? We might want to think about scheduling that particular program.
Yeah,
because so far we haven't had to deal with that since 1945. Let's hope that's way, but hope. Yeah, it's a problem. So, also, when again, as Mikey said, I'm trying to give you factual information. I am not endorsing the government of Iran. I am not endorsing Agent Orange or Senator Graham or the religious nutcases in the Israeli government. Right? This is about.
This is not a pro-Zionist thing. This is a how does the bomb work? If you wanted to know how it works, this is that part, not the other part.
No, I'm not gonna teach you how to.
Yeah, hold on. Let me
how to build.
It is also not that.
that in fact that Patreon show doesn't show how to do it. It talks about actually how it's difficult and the steps involved in proliferation, right? Because one of my focuses is now on non-proliferation. What does that mean? It means let's not get out of hand and have nukes around every corner, right? We do not want to have open carry nuclear permits.
I mean, Florida has some new legislation. I don't know.
So this is that. So Iran's nuclear facilities are under attack by the state of Israel. We have a war now. Mikey, what is this thing about people not saying the word we've declared war, right? Because
then if I declare war, I got to go through Congress and all this stuff. But if I just start attacking people and claim emergency indigent powers, then it's different.
But the Israeli Knesset has nil ability to change the government, and of course Iran's government is also locked into place.
Right.
So why don't they just say, yeah, we're at war, right? There is a war going on between Israel and Iran, and it hasn't been declared because apparently that is somehow not popular. That's what's happening.
You have to write it down. If it's not written down, it doesn't count, apparently.
and so I'm not justifying it, but Iran's nuclear facilities are particularly under attack. They are also Israel is also bombing Iran's drone facilities, rocket facilities, and also government facilities. But this particular map, this is courtesy of the BBC News, talks about where Iran has things relating to nuclear weapons. So research reactors, what are nuclear reactors? They're the real nuclear reactors that produce power, and research reactors are particularly designed to do nuclear research. You can stick things in a reactor and cook them. You get all those neutrons to bang against the atoms and change them. And one of the things you can do in a research reactor is to stick some U-238, because there's plenty of it in there, and bake it and create plutonium-239 and other things, right? Now, they claim, oh, no, this is for building isotopes for doing medical research for anti-cancer, treatments, that sort of stuff. And yes, that's what you can do with a nuclear reactor, but they're also doing other things with those nuclear reactors. Iran has mines, right? Iran's not smuggling, doesn't have to smuggle their uranium from a place like Niger. Iran has their own fairly rich set of uranium mines. They're
that's just
rich in
ore.
uranium.
And that's just
Yes.
ore, right?
Yeah, that's just the natural ore. So they have the uranium. They also have nuclear. Now, nuclear sites are things where they're actually doing things relating to nuclear processing, right? So these reactors are generating power, but they're also the difference between a research reactor and a commercial reactor is research reactor makes it easy for you to go in and test things and stick things inside and have materials nuclear cooked, right? These things that are these atom symbols, these are locations where they're actually doing nuclear processing and centrifuges and so forth. And so these are the things that are under attack. Now, there's also a military site here as well that has some things relating to Iran's nuclear program. And so these are the places, if you're living anywhere near these spots, I would find someplace else to go, because it appears that the Israeli government and Israeli military are determined to take these systems and disable them for an extended period of time. Now, I know that Agent Orange, Trump, has said, hey, folks, get out of Tehran. Tehran has nuclear reactors. It's a really bad idea to stick your research reactors inside your major population centers. That's a really dumb thing to do. Don't do that. But what can I say?
I don't think people should put a lot of different facilities around people, and they do that shit intentionally so that they're not hit.
Yeah. Yeah. And so right now the images you can get of Tehran are traffic jams of stuff. Tehran is like any major city, but worse in terms of traffic. And now everyone's trying to flee into the countryside. Of course, they got in the countryside, and where do they go? Right. That's a trouble. So these are the places under attack. And you can see the reports about what Israel has done or not done in that regard. This is a very photo. This is yellow cake. This is when you take and mine uranium and you strip away all the stuff and you focus on it. The uranium oxide is this sort of yellowish color, which, by the way, was used for a long time, was used for ceramics, right? It's a nice, pretty yellow color. And people used to grab uranium and make as a glaze, right? It was
no.
And by the way, you can go out and find take a Geiger counter and go out to like antique stores and find
glass.
This stuff.
Didn't they have like that greenish glass that's like
the uranium glass, another thing as well. That's when you put it in a glass, it ends up building a green zone. And why in the world would you stick uranium in glass? Because it changes the glass's property. If you want to have glass clomb around a filament, like let's say you have a couple of tungsten wires, we want to create a spark inside of a glass filled container. How do you get the glass to bind around those tungsten rods? Well, what you do, and you learn this in glass blowing, is you take this uranium glass and you kind of mix it, because uranium glass is like a bond between metal and regular like Pyrex glass. But it's uranium. Natural uranium is not that. It's not like some super toxic hazardous thing. If you were to dig up a cubic meter of dirt in your yard, you would find a couple of grams of thorium and a couple of grams of uranium in it. Just there. It is a very common material.
Never going outside again. Confirmed. Staying in the house. There's uranium in the dirt.
But most of the uranium has a half-life around 4.5 billion years. It is so low level, right? That it's not a biohazard. It's a very common thing, and you have bits of uranium in you. Now,
here we go.
When you put it on a uranium, if you use it as one of those orange yellow pots, and by the way, again, there are people who go around to antique stores around in like the U.S. Southwest and find these uranium glassware stuff. There were companies you can buy on there. Again, it's not like this hazardous thing where you can buy this stuff. So just don't stick your radiation dosimeter in a little pot full of uranium glass or uranium glaze.
This is good from Scott here. It says World War II pilot's watches. My science teacher used to keep his father's in a lead box. Bought it out to show and now and then, show and tell. That's
radium is much nastier than uranium.
And those ladies who were doing the painting,
and particularly what's really bad is radium decays into radon, and radon is effectively inert. It's one of the noble gases, right? It's not completely inert. And so it's a gas that escapes So, but that's what this is with uranium ore, right? When they ground out the rock and they take out all the other stuff, this is what you get. Now, why people are interested in uranium besides making interesting green glass and yellow glaze is this isotope called U-235. Now, go to the Patreon and become a Patreon and look at that thing in more detail. But essentially, uranium is an element, has chemical properties, but there are different isotopes. What that means is that it's the same 92 protons and 92 electrons when it's electrically neutral, but it sometimes has more or fewer number of neutrons inside it. The one that is U-235 is interesting because if it gets hit with a neutron, it absorbs a neutron, it turns into U-236, and U-236 is so unstable that the nucleus oscillates violently and eventually splits apart, and you get two pieces that are roughly 2 to 1 in mass, and these two pieces are repulsive because normally the nucleus is bound by the strong nuclear force. You get these two pieces that it splits apart, and these two pieces, it's like you have two very, very, very powerful magnets that are repelling each other very, very close, and they fly away violently, right? These go at enormous speeds, and that's where most of the energy is, but it also kicks out a couple neutrons that can go and find more U-235 to do more and more and more and more and more and more, and you get a chain reaction if you have the right conditions.
Not to be critical, but no, I was just kidding.
Well done, sir. So only about 0.7% of uranium, 0.7% of this yellow stuff is U-235. Why? Because U-235 has a shorter half-life than U-238. Only a little bit of it is U-235. So 0.7% there. The other 99.3% doesn't give you a chain reaction under even normal conditions. You have to do really wacky things to get it to react. But see the Patreon thing for more details. But U-235, so when you hear about enrichment, right? This is this thing. People talk about enrichment. Why is enrichment important? Well, if you have a high enough concentration of U-235, you can get these chain reactions to start going. Why do you want chain react? Well, if you want a nuclear reactor, if you want it to smolder along and generate power.
I'm going to boil some water.
Yeah, exactly. That's what a nuclear reactor is. It's just a glorified boiler, water boiler, generates steam to have the steam generate the turbine. I'm not making this up. This is actually what they do. The reactors are hot when these things go split, and you have control rods to keep it down so it doesn't get out of control. And
the most
hot.
The most steampunk shit I've ever heard of is a nuclear reactor. It is so steampunk.
Well,
I take my magic crystals and put them in the water, and the water gets hot, and I run my whole city off of the steam. It's so steampunk.
That's the deal. Now, so that's the thing is only a bit of uranium can do this, only a small fraction, and people want to get to that small fraction. Now, we also have to talk about this man. AQ Khan. This man is living under house arrest in a pleasure palace in Pakistan. This man is probably going to be responsible for millions of deaths. This man did a really bad thing. One of the things we know he did was that he was working in nuclear facilities. And he was very curious about lots of things, gathered lots of information across the spectrum, and he sold this on the black market to, we know, Muammar Gaddafi. Why? Because when Gaddafi turned state's evidence, he was the dictator of Libya. He handed over the documents that Khan sold him, and they have Khan's fingerprint and DNA on them. We also know from the invasion of Baghdad that he sold that information to Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And while Iraq was not anywhere near the ability to build nuclear weapons, they were in the early investigation phases of it. So no, there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but Israel wasn't taking any chances and took out Iraq's nuclear reactor that could have been used. We also know that Khan is the father of Pakistan's nuclear weapons program. So the thing we had in Kashmir where India and Pakistan were going at each other, both are nuclear capability stuff. He's the guy that gave Pakistan the nuclear weapons capability, right? They set off nukes. They're part of the unfortunate part of the nuclear club. He also gave this material to Iran, and Iran's processes and capabilities are straight Khan documents, right? He also gave it to North Korea. So North Korea, Iran, Iraq, but they've turned it over. Libya, they've turned it over, and Pakistan all have nuclear programs because of this man making bucks on the side. And it's a shame to Pakistan that this guy is not in a deep, dark jail. And sadly, he will probably be responsible for that. But let's move on. What does he do? Well, one of the things we know that Iran has centrifuges. So what centrifuges? By the way, let's go back to that. Nimitz is over here. It's one of the nuclear sites. This is one of the pictures. This is the president, I think, Rafsanjani, one of the former presidents of Iran, and their centrifuge program they released. And this is a recent one photo, again, of their facilities. Now, what are these things? What's going on here? Why are people so concerned about this stuff? Well, a centrifuge is designed to enrich uranium. But uranium in a special form, in a gas. And what happens is you get a certain concentration of U-235 coming in, and you get a slightly more concentration going out, and the going up, and the slightly less going out. So let's say, for example, you put in the natural uranium at 0.7%. this particular thing might send 1% enriched out this side and 0.5% backwards, right? It's basically, it's concentrating the U-235. How does it do that? Well, this particular thing, this is a cross section. This device is spinning at an insane, enormous speed. This device is just on the edge of tearing itself apart. It spins extremely fast, and why is that? Because the denser stuff goes to the outside edge, the lighter stuff goes inside. Because difference between U-235 and U-238, that 235 to 238 ratio, the one's a little bit more dense. So the more dense stuff, the ones that have more U-238 in it and less 235 goes outside edge, and the less dense stuff goes in the middle. So this guy takes whatever source. It might be you might come in at 10%, and the depleted stuff goes at 9%, and the rich stuff goes at 11%. Each step boosts you just a little bit. Now I'm making up these numbers because it depends on how efficient your thing is. Now you can't make this super wide, because if you make it too wide, the edges have such stress that they will just blow apart. So it has to be narrow, but the narrower the less efficient. So this contrast between how wide it is, fast spinning, versus how efficient it is. But they also have to keep this very finely balanced, because if these bearings get off just a little bit, if it starts to wobble, it violently tears itself apart and explodes all over the place, right?
Unplanned deconstruction.
Yes. So these things, so to make this stuff, you have to have a special steel. That's one of the things that Kahn, who was a metallurgist, first got interested in. He said, that there's a special steel that can withstand these super, super, super high G forces. But the other business is the bearings. You just can't go down the hardware store and get some axle bearings and stick on there. It's too finely balanced. It has to be extremely well balanced. And in fact, they typically have to have bearings that are actively monitored, electrically monitored, where it says, oh, it's getting out a little bit this way, it's not just this way. They've got actuators to try to keep it centered. It has to be actively computer monitored to keep this thing from destroying itself. And we heard about the Stux virus. Right? One of the things they really did was to infect the computers that monitor these centrifuges, got them busy doing other things, and got them, neglecting their duty. And some of these things started wobbling and destroying themselves. It's one of the ways that Israel has attacked this facility. But these things are very delicate, very highly sensitive. Simply sticking. Now this is you're seeing the outside casing. Underneath that metal casing is the actual centrifuge. So these are not the spinning things. These are the casing around the spinning things, which is just inside. But it's so sensitive. If you took your hand and touched the outside edge, you'd ruin that centrifuge. That just the oil from your hand on the thing would put it off balance, off center, and it would fly apart and go bang, right? So one of the gentlemen who was brought in when Gaddafi turned state heaven and said, I've decided to be friendly with the West. It's better to come clean. I want you guys to come in and take away my nuclear program. And the guys came in, and one of the things because they didn't know if he was going to follow through with it. And so they were, oh, Gaddafi, you're so smart and so forth. I let me touch this thing. Let me. Oh, wow! Look how smooth it is. Another got Gaddafi also to touch it. Basically, they went and destroyed his centrifuges. Got him to do it. But anyway, he was turning over state's evidence anyway. So whatever.
This is probably the wrong thing to say, but if we manufacture the bearings in space, we could get them perfectly circular, which is kind of unattainable, because even if you're in microgravity, you can just get some molten metal, put a little velocity on that thing, and you'll have a perfectly concentric circle, and then you can
Now,
but
bearings
want to do that.
the bearings are typically, I don't go into detail, but they're typically electromechanical. So there are magnets and other things that are there, but certainly operating a centrifuge in space would be easier because you'd have fewer contaminants and fewer nudging of things, causing it to go off center.
Landon, can we just have a nuclear-powered spacecraft already? I'm sick of waiting. I want to see Jupiter up close, damn it.
Yeah, well, we do. We do. There is a nice isotope of plutonium that is not able to make a weapon that glows a half-life around 79 years and allows us to do deep space probes and generate power that way. That's another thing.
Go 2 miles an hour. I want to go fast. I want to get there before I'm dead.
You want warp drive too, probably. So
please, if you have one.
So natural uranium is at 0.7%. For a reactor, you want that uranium to be a little bit more concentrated. Why? Because those neutrons fly out and if they hit a U-238 atom, it doesn't do any good, right? You need to have U-235 talking to U-35 and banging each other. So you need to have enough U-235 in your pellet so that some of the neutrons that fly out when you have a split, right? Some of these neutrons, at least, one comes in, converts it, and at least one finds another U-235. You don't need a lot, but you need enough. And typically what you need for a reactor is go from that 0.7% to 3 to 5%. And think of this like this is, it's a bad analogy, but think of this like this is your octane rating, right? 5% is jet fuel, 3% is low grade gasoline. And that's all you need to have a modern nuclear reactor, right?
Because they do pellets or something, right? Or the rods.
Yeah, that's what the rods. So that's the amount of concentration you need to get to this level, to get to a functioning reactor. So if Iran says peaceful stuff, this is the 3 to 5% level that you need to have a reactor do something. Because if you just stick a bunch of yellow cake in a box, it's not going to chain react. Right. There's too little of it there. So how do you know that? Well, guess what? If you just had a pile of uranium around, we'd have nuclear reactors out there in the mines, right? That rock would be going boom, 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 boom. And yes, you can sometimes
the mountain is steaming.
And yes, there was in Africa a place where there was enough concentrated things in the right conditions where you started a reactor. That reactor was probably around 1.5%. It was a very inefficient reactor that basically natural reactor that operated for a couple million years. But to get something that's practical is 3 to 5%. Now, what is this graph showing? This graph is showing stages. What do you mean by stages? Well, you take one of these, you take the stuff that comes in at 0.7%, and maybe it goes out at 1%. And then the next stage goes to 1.2 and 1.3 and 1.4. That is down the line. I'm making up these numbers, right. But down the line, as you go down the line, it gets more and more and more and more concentrated. That's what I mean by stages, right? That you enter in at stage 0, and the more concentrated stuff goes to stage 1, and the less concentrated stuff goes backwards, right? So remember, there's 2 exhausts. There's the enriched stuff that comes out the top, and the less enriched stuff, the more depleted stuff that goes out the side. And you say, well, why do we care about the backward stuff? Well, because that U-238 is useful for other things, right? Uranium is a useful metal, and you can do things also like stick in a reactor, a research reactor. Remember we have these research reactor. You can stick the U-238 in a research reactor and cook it and produce plutonium, which has its own other things. So this is why you have at stage 0 is the natural stuff coming in, and what's going to happen is that the less active stuff goes backwards, more active stuff going forward. Notice how many stages you need. You need about 6 stages to get to from 3 to 5%. Depends on how efficient your centrifuge is, and Iranian centrifuges are reasonably efficient. This is what you need. You need about 10 stages, right? You need 3 going backwards to get the depleted uranium, and 6 going forward. That's what you need to make a reactor. This is what you need to make highly enriched uranium at 90%. What's the difference between this and this? Stages. No magic, no special sauce. It's just how you plumb these things together, right? If these things if they're operating in parallel long enough, you plumb it long enough, you go from something like this to something like this, because it's the same stages. You just have 32 of them, right? So instead of having a set of 10, you have a set of 32. The difference between reactor grade and highly enriched uranium is just how you plumb your centrifuges. That's it. That's it.
And that's the yellow cake that's going into the centrifuges. Just
actually, what they do is they take, because yellow cake is a solid, you need a gas, and uranium. One of its uses is it has one of the highest melting points and one of the highest boiling points of all the metals. Not the highest, but up there, right? It's way, way, way up there. Very dense metal, high. So how do you get uranium to become a gas? Well, you create something called uranium hexaflloride, right? You take fluorine is this atom. It's got it is 7 electrons in its outer shell, and it wants to get that 8th electron to complete that shell. It is bound and determined to get that extra electron to complete its shell.
It'll do anything for that electron.
It'll rip off anything, including, right? And so you get 6 of these fluorine atoms to attack a uranium atom, and they all yank out their. They don't steal it away. It's create a chemical bond. And so when 6 fluorine atoms surround a uranium atom, it makes a chemical called uranium hexafluoride, and that is a gas at rational temperatures. And this is why you'll hear the word uranium hexafluoride, because they've turned this yellow cake, this powder that has one of the highest melting and boiling points of all the elements, into a gas at rational temperatures, because this centrifuge works on gas, not on solids.
Right.
So they take uranium and they turn it into gas. Now, fluorine is a deadly chemical compound in its pure form. And
we have a question in the chat. Imagine breathing in that stuff. What happens if you would take a big whiff of that old fluorine hexafluoride,
uranium hexafluoride? Well, you would probably die first of fluoride. The fluorine will most likely work its way into your bones and will begin to degrade your bones. It also, fluorine binds to other things in your system. So as it begins to break down, it grabs a hold of other stuff. So your body chemistry starts going to hell. It actually eventually gets in your bones. Now, the fact that uranium is radioactive and carried along with it adds a little bit of nuking to your bone marrow. But the point is that there was a saying that there's the difference between a live fluorine chemist and a dead fluorine chemist is time. Right? Fluorine is a very volatile material, and if you ever go to a lab that does fluorine chemistry, they are super careful, because that stuff is just nasty.
You don't get to make mistakes.
No. And now, when fluorine forms a compound like fluoride for your toothpaste, it's stable. Because it's grabbed that the fluoride compounds are rock solid stable, which is part of their use. So it's not that fluorine is bad as its uses, but fluorine gas is there. So these facilities that have fluorine, they generate fluorine and get it react with uranium, nasty chemical things. They're probably, again, you probably will die first from your fluorine poisoning than you will from the constant your radiation you might get. Now, uranium-235 is not super reactive. I think its half-life is in a couple 100,000 years rather than 3.5 billion years. But it's the chemical stuff that becomes nasty. And when these things blow apart, you get all this fluorine gas there. And the only way you can get in is you're talking about super hazmat suits, gas masks that really work, not the chin diapers that people used to use for COVID. No. You're talking about real stuff,
rebreathers.
Yes, and stuff. So like if you go to a volcanic vent where there is fluorine gas coming out, you need to be serious and not get on your skin. It reacts because fluorine's got there saying, I don't care who you are. We're going to form a compound and
we are bonding. We are going to bond whether you like it or not.
Yeah. So the difference between reactor grade stuff, and again, you can do reactors lower or higher, but practical reactors and so-called highly enriched uranium is just the plumbing. Now, these guys came in. The International Atomic Energy Agency is a UN group that one of their charters is to try to manage proliferation and try to minimize nuclear weapons proliferation. These folks are no friend of the Israeli government, right? They're mad at Israel because Israel pretends it's not a nuclear capable nation. It is nuclear. Israel has nuclear weapons.
And they lie about it on TV so much. It's like, hey, do you have nukes? It's like, what is a nuke? It's like, all right, buddy.
But if you're so silly to ask them, do you have nuclear weapons? It's like asking John Lennon, was Lucy in the Sky a Diamond related to drugs? And his
what do you know? It's about my dear friend Lucy, and
his kid
happens to be
yes, his kids drawing and that was his deal. But yeah, he was sort of saying, if you're dumb enough to ask me that question, I'm going to give you the smart aleck answer, right? That's what and so Israel says the same thing. If you ask Israel, it'll give you their answer. So IAEA doesn't like, it's mad at Israel because Israel won't let them inspect what they have. But we know from South Africa, and particularly Nelson Mandela terminated South Africa's nuclear weapons program. The pre-apartheid, the apartheid government had a nuclear weapons program, and they were working with Israel on a nuclear weapons development. There's a claim that there was a flash off the coast of the Indian Ocean, which was a joint exercise test between South Africa and Israel. This is what the South African government has said about Israel. So Israel has nukes. Everyone knows it. Don't ask them. They won't give you a straight answer. These folks as well know that Iran a nuke. Now, remember that Agent Orange came in and destroyed the Iran had a deal saying, we'll allow you to inspect to prove that we're not making nukes. What do you mean by inspection? Well, inspectors go to a place like this, and they look at how the stuff is plumbed, and they want to have cameras there to watch that someone doesn't come in and just rewire or replumb it. So they go through and they do, and they also take samples. They take samples of the stuff coming out to look at the concentration and look for highly concentrated stuff, because also they'll look for contamination. So if you are participating in saying, yes, I'm enriching uranium for nuclear power, for a reactor to create radioisotopes to treat cancer, they'll come in and they'll inspect, they'll install cameras that are tamper resistant, and to make sure you're not, after they leave, go back and rewiring. And we had a deal. I think it was Obama administration started it, but actually those negotiations went as far back as George W. Bush, trying to get to say, hey, Iran, we know you have uranium mines. We know you want to use nuclear power because we know that your oil reserves are finite. We also know you want to make isotopes for treating cancer. Fine, just let us make sure you're plumbing it correctly so that you're doing this and not this.
Right.
This, you look at this facility, and if you're not tracing all the pipes, that could be producing highly enriched uranium, not reactor uranium. So these folks came out and said, they were saying these are the ones with the agreement say these folks come in because they have the inspectors, they know how to look at cheating, they know how to take samples, and they can catch you, right? It is very easy to catch someone cheating if they allow you to come in and look. That nuclear deal that Trump tore up was the deal to say, okay, we will check your enrichment to make sure you're making normal reactors. The other thing that deal did, by the way, is remember I said that U-238 could be turned into plutonium?
Right.
Well, the waste product out of a reactor, just in producing power, will have some plutonium in it. So the agreement was, let us take your nuclear waste and take that away because we don't want you to come in and start chemically working that into plutonium,
right,
or a plutonium weapon. Why is plutonium is another one of those things that will split like U-235, but it does it more efficiently in certain circumstances. So these folks came out and said, so these are folks who were the ones who would have gone inspection, and Agent Orange, his behavior is such that he really enjoys a crisis. I think it stimulates him in ways we don't want to think about.
It's the only way he can feel.
His stick is to come into a crisis room, and he believes he has, and I'm using his words, godlike powers to sense the room and to say, you're hired, you're fired, right? He picks the winner and loser, right? That's his, and he enjoys. So he actually doesn't want to avoid crisis. He sees crisis as his opportunity for him to, in his mind, shine. So nuking, unintended, the nuclear agreement with Iran made it more difficult. Now, was the agreement good? I think it could have been better. I think the agreement could have been better where it had stronger active work. When the US and the Soviet Union had agreements to watch each other on its nukes, we actually had camera systems that would detect tampering and try to make sure that people weren't faking stuff. You can set up a situation where they're actively monitoring on site to make sure you're not cheating.
Yeah.
Trump tore it up, said a bad deal, and came back later in this current administration to try to cook another deal with Iran. Because again, he can negotiate things. That was his deal. These folks, and there was a 60-day period where we suspect now that what happened was Israel says, we want to go and destroy Iran's nuclear program. And Trump said, hold off, let me see if I can cook a deal. Let me see if I can bring them to an agreement. And yes, the agreement that was ratified during the Obama administration that Trump destroyed could have been stronger. And maybe they were negotiating a stronger deal. I don't know, because again, Trump's not interested in avoiding a nuclear war. He's interested in being the deal maker. Right?
He's not interested in working.
No.
At work.
Yeah. So these folks recently this year came back and said, while there was no agreement for monitoring, we had voluntary casual inspections. And we go there, we take samples, they allow us to take samples, swabs. It's like you go in through TSA and you get the special treatment where they take and they scrape swabs over your shoes and your luggage, right? The same kind of thing you can do in a processing plant where you can get those trace amounts and you can see if they're cheating, even if they don't allow you through the entire facility. These folks came back this year and said, in our involuntary Iran saying, see, we're not making nuclear weapons programs, he said, we caught them cheating. These folks came back and said, we have solid evidence that they have enriched uranium at 60%. 60%. Then these documents like this were with diagrams were obtained. Talking about schematics, and you say what's with the schematics and this shockwave stuff and core and so forth. There, become a patron and see the that show for what this diagram is. But this isn't a diagram. This is not a reactor. This is a thing to go boom. It's sort of a block diagram. It's not as detailed as you would want to do for design, but this is what we need to do. Also, and understand here that so we have the program, the UN program, catching uraniums having stuff at about 60%. It was a voluntary inspection, but the Iranians didn't realize how good these guys are at catching you cheating, right? You think you're going to come into the test and have the answers up your sleeve. They know how to check that. Yeah, they know how to bust you. So they were busted. Also, then these were spies that came in and brought out diagrams. There's all kinds of stuff, diagrams from the design of the Iranian nuclear schematics. They're exactly the mode that Khan taught them how to do and sold them. But there's another big point, and if nothing else, because I was giving lots of facts, if nothing else, here is a thing that you're not going to hear from the lazy journalism going on. You hear about this 90%, 90%, right? The highly enriched uranium.
Mainstream media is lazy. Landon, no way. They totally went and found somebody of your accolades to teach them about nukes. They totally did that. No way. They just listen to one side.
So when someone says, "Oh, they're at 60%, they're almost at 90%," that must mean they're 2/3 of the way through. No, no. 90% is the premium jet fuel, rocket fuel for a nuclear weapon. But you can build nuclear weapons far lower than 90%. Let's say again, 90% is not you have a weapon and 89% you fail. 90% is just the most efficient, turbocharged.
The Bugatti.
Yes. Oh, there.
There are other cars other than Bugatti. There are other fast cars other than Bugattis.
Yes. So in this diagram, I realize it's fuzzy, but I had only a short amount of time to take it. Come on. There. But what this diagram shows you on this side is percentage, concentration, how much U-235 versus U-238. From 0% on this side over here to 100%. And this line curve shows you how many kilograms from 0 kilograms up to 500 kilograms metric ton, how much you need in order to have a critical mass. Where you've had it at really room temperature. So 300 Kelvin is roughly 27. It's a comfortable warm day. And around it is beryllium, thickness of 10 centimeters. So that's about what's in inches, it's about 2.5 inches of beryllium around the edge. To do what? To reflect those neutrons back.
Right.
So this says if you were to put like this number here, if you're at 30% and you had 100 kilograms of uranium that's been enriched at only 30%, and you surrounded it with a 10 centimeter thick beryllium neutron reflector, it would go critical and bang. So when they talk about 60%, we're talking about a thing that's maybe about 40 kilograms versus maybe about 15. There 60% now is capable of making a weapon. Remember, the first weapon dropped in wartime on Hiroshima was a device that was not highly enriched. It was not called weapons grade. The first device that was set off was only at 79%. Now, you saw the Oppenheimer thing and all the stuff they're doing. That was trying to get plutonium to get into a situation where they can build a bomb out of plutonium. Uranium-235 was not a Manhattan Project. It was one professor and his grad students designed the weapon, did the calculations, and they were so certain they never tested it except on Hiroshima. The Hiroshima bomb was a U-235 bomb that was, and I'll see a diagram about it, they were so certain it would work that they never bothered testing it. The Manhattan Project and the Oppenheimer movie is all about plutonium, which they could make in mass quantities much easier than uranium. And so the first weapon at 79% was not this 90%. And you say, well, what is Iran doing at 60% enriched? That's not a nuclear reactor. This is sort of like dumping liquid oxygen and hydrogen on your gas grill and getting ready to light that stuff up and launch it to the moon. This is not.
I'm gonna cook everything in about half a second. I'm tired of standing out here all day. I'm gonna flash burn everything.
No. Also remember, this is critical mass. This would be if you just pile a bunch of uranium that's enriched on a pile and you surround it by a reflector at 10 centimeters thick, it would self-ignite.
From the neutrons.
Yes, from the neutrons, right? This is what this implosion does, right? And so the Manhattan Project was to do this thing plutonium inside, have these explosives, crush it to create its density. So it goes from it's not enriched enough to chain react. You crush it, make it dense. You make sure it's got a good start of neutrons, and it goes bang, right? This graph talks about if you just were dumb enough to pile this much up in one sphere, keep it room temperature, and to surround it with a beryllium reflector, it would go self-bang, right? This is where you say, well, that would be stupid, right? Because you start piling up, and some point, that teaspoon, you just get that last little grain in there and goes bang. It'll be a bad day for everyone. To have a weapon, you want it to be sub-bang and crush the thing to increase to create a criticality event. By the way, this is what they did with Hiroshima. In Hiroshima, they had two pieces of U-35 concentrated at 79%, and they had a cannon. And the cannon basically fired one block into the other. So it fired it fast enough that the thing hit and went bang, right? Literally, it's a cannon with a half a cannonball on one side and a cannonball behind the charge. There's two things slammed together, and you had Hiroshima. And again, they were so confident they never tested it except on Hiroshima that it was going to go. This is what Iran is building. Why do you say, how do you know? Well, here is a picture from the Iranian Research Archives, right? This is the pit. This is the initiator in electronics, and this is the pit. This is the surround thing of the charge on a missile.
We got a 2 pound. Listen to me. I'm hanging out with the Brits too much. $2 super chat from Greg. Demon cores are great for party entertainment. I mean, the first time, first time they're pretty sweet.
Yeah, the U.S. actually had that's a good point. That demon core you brought up. The demon core was a pile of plutonium that was an insane pile. It was enriched to near weapons grade or around weapons grade, and it had enough mass that it was just short of going critical. And in fact, what you could do is you could take a block of, let's say, a reflector like lead or beryllium, and you start bringing the block towards the demon core, it would start to reflect back enough neutrons that you began to get a reaction, right? It would start to go critical. The criticality would cause a exponential growth of atom splitting. that atom splitting would create such pressure, it would blow the block back. But in the meantime, it sets out all this enough radiation that you get the shrink off blue flash. And if you saw that happen, you were likely to be dead in a matter of time. It was an insane thing. In fact, they had 2 accidents of people that were messing around testing with it, and the cake housing got a little bit too cozy, and it went critical and blew the housing out and killed a bunch of people. Didn't they record thankfully that? What?
Wasn't one of those recorded?
Oh yeah. There's stuff, and it was they had an accident, and someone else was doing testing and had another accident. And it was an insane thing. The purpose of that thing was to do actual physical testing on plutonium's criticality, because there were some issues with how fast plutonium splits and how many neutrons it sent out. They were doing testing of that stuff. But it was also designed to be with just adding a little bit more plutonium to it. It was designed to be the pit for the 3rd nuclear bomb that was going to drop on Japan if they hadn't achieved surrender. So Iran is building one of these kind of devices. These are things which, and you might see them in, but it's a Manhattan class project. It has all the hallmarks of Khan. There is, again, remember, on the path to get material, you mine it, you create your yellow cake, you convert it to gas, you enrich it by these centrifuges of low goes backwards, higher goes forward. You concentrate to build things where you can fabricate something like a fuel rod or a bomb. The other way is you go and put it in a reactor, have the reactor cook it, produce plutonium, reprocess it, and convert to material. So when we talked about those research reactors, and inspectors want to come in there and Iran and says, no, it's research. We don't want to reveal your secrets. That was one of the things they were doing, was cooking uranium to build plutonium. We don't know how much plutonium they have. It doesn't take much. The amount of plutonium for the Trinity test, that Oppenheimer movie, was carried in a suitcase by one person out to the site. It's not very much.
Chris C. with a 2 British pound super chat. It was referred to as tickling the dragon's tail. Yes. You know, I'm not going to lie. I didn't watch Oppenheimer. I felt like I knew all of that stuff already. You know what I mean? It's like I already seen 10 documentaries about this time period. So, but I think I should go ahead and watch just like I enjoyed Chernobyl. Like, I mean, as much as you can enjoy a show about a nuclear explosion and a catastrophe, but I thought it was a well done show. I should probably check out Oppenheimer.
My criticism of the chief person, Robert Oppenheimer, is that he was a person who should have never been given a clearance. He attempted to murder one of his graduate professor student, one of his grad teachers. And it doesn't matter that he ended up chickening out and preventing the guy from eating poison apple, but Oppenheimer premeditated, created a situation where if this guy had eaten the apple, taken a bite of the apple, which he was prone to do because he liked apples, he would have died. And he put it in there, and then when it was there, he managed to get it away from the guy before he ate it. And so he went through the process of premeditating murder. He had a number of psychological problems that he was no way should he have been anywhere near a weapons program. There were plenty of other people who could have administered that program. He was not the dude that put it all together. It was Feynman, it was von Neumann, it was Teller, it was Ulam, it was other people, key people who knew the physics and who could design the stuff and do the calculations and figure stuff out. It was not Oppenheimer. And he should have never been given a clearance. He attempted to kill someone. He's mentally unstable. He had rich parents because the university then did an investigation, found you tried to murder one of our grad professors. We're going to kick you out. And he had rich parents who came in and said, "Oh, let our little son stay in there. He promised not to kill anyone anymore."
He's just a young lad. You know how? Who hasn't tried to poison a college administrator or two? You know, like let ye with the poison apple.
And Oppenheimer tried to do this thing about, I have this angst thing of whether I push the button or not. No. He was going to push the button. He was an unstable individual that should never been given a clearance, never should have administered a program, but a lot of mistakes were made in that weapons program, and he was one of them. So that's one of my criticism of the movie, is he's not some kind of hero. He's not some sort of conflicted dude.
Psycho.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So here's I'll leave it with this. This is a Institute for Science International Security report. This is a report talking about goes into detail on the Iran's weapons program, the documents, the designs of stuff, materials, sites. This basically, they said these are the folks that are doing the stuff, where they got the material from, documents well documented that there. So I'll stop saying, well documented that Iran has a nuclear weapons program. Remember, Iran is the country which is supplying key drone supplies to Russia to kill civilians in Ukraine. Iran is the one that is keeping part supplies for the Russian attack and killing civilians in Ukraine. Iran is the country that funds Hezbollah and Hamas. Iran is the country that helps Hamas design the attack on Israel. I'm not talking about the Israeli response, but they are the ones that killed 12 Israeli citizens, raped and killed a number of people in that area, and it was Iranian funded, Iranian planned, Iranian backed. They're the ones that are having the rebels on Houthi rebels that are attacking shipping. They did a whole bunch of stuff with the Assad regime. That the Iranian government's bad boy thing is well documented. The fact that they had 60% to me is proof they were on their way. Now, why didn't it go to 90%? Answer is, well, if you just start concentrating a bunch of 90% uranium laying around and you're not taking that out and separating it, it's going to go boom on you, right? So when you get into more concentrated, you've got to separate that out. And now you've got this hexafluoride concentrated uranium gas. You got to get the fluorine out without killing yourself. And you got to get the uranium into a form that's going to go into those pits to go boom, right? So it's not a done deal. You have to do more stuff, but it's known. People know how to do that. They were on their way to not do peaceful programs. They're on their way to build a nuclear weapon. And if you consider the type of crap they were doing to Ukrainian civilians, the kind of crap they did to innocent people in the Middle East, the attacks on other countries, attacks on shipping, the blood is well on their hands, and they were on their way. Now, will Israel be able to stop them? I don't know, because it depends upon how fast the Iranians can move stuff around. And let's say that Israel is able to completely destroy all the current facilities. Iran still has the mines. They still have the know-how. They would probably just build something even deeper underground, because they found out for various reasons how easy it is to penetrate rock. And they found out how easy it is. They thought they were safe. They thought they were clever. They got caught. I'm not justifying what Israel did. I'm not justifying what Trump is doing. I'm just telling you the facts. They were on their way to build a weapon. They were stopping short because they knew if they concentrated too much and put too much material in one spot, it would go boom. So they had to basically figure out how to go from that gas to a weapon. They have the missiles. They have the long-range missiles to be able to carry those weapons out. It's just a matter of how far they need to enrich it to get it to small enough to fit into a rocket to do really terrible things. And a bunch of religious nutcases are capable of doing all kinds of rationalization to do extremely horrible stuff. And that doesn't matter whether it is in the Kremlin or it is in the religious halls in Israel or in Iran or other places. They're nutcases that have this apocalyptic mindset, and a weapon of this type are a really bad combination. So remember, 90%. When you hear that 90% say, no, that's just efficiency. You can do a lot of damage with stuff a lot shorter.
Okay.
Sorry for the rant, but it's a
no.
So let's
you're fine.
Let me take a breather. Talk.
Yeah.
Questions from the chat.
And we're gonna.
Hi, Tim. Slow news day.
Hi, Tim. So we're gonna do this, and Landon's a big boy, so he's gonna be fine. Kay in the chat says, "Fuck this guy. I'm just asking about science, not manufacturing consent for Zionists. Fuck this insidious bullshit." I think you're pulling the trigger too early. I think you wanted this to be one thing. You didn't listen. I was watching the chat the whole time. You weren't really listening, and you were more or less waiting for something to be said that you didn't like. I know, and I knew that this might be triggering for some people, and they might go to, but play it back. It's not you're adding things without knowing you're adding things, and that's not me gaslighting you. That's just I'm on the same side as you, and I just listen to the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, the only reason I had Landon on is because I think it is important for people to appreciate the science and to understand that what the news is saying about like that 90% being the critical point, and they have to stop them before they get that. Like, that's not true. That's the crux of the whole talk. So if you thought that there was a slant on that, I don't know. You know what I mean?
There's no reason why you reach even 60% they were caught at, when 3 to 5% is what you need for a reactor.
And whether or not they should have nukes is a different political question. I don't think any of them should have nukes. But if Israel has nukes and they want to have nukes because they're fighting with Israel, I see it as fair play. Like, if one side's going to have nukes, then the other side's going to want nukes. That's why I don't think anybody should have nukes. Just like, I mean, look at Ukraine. We denuked Ukraine and then promptly put in an administration who was throwing them to the wolves. They're saying, let's nuke up now. You know what I mean? Like, this is all stupid. And
by the way, Iran's threatening of Saudi Arabia because they had a disagreement over religion, nuance of religion, is another thing that the Saudis are deathly afraid of. The problem, of course, in Israel is the way the Knesset works. It is virtually impossible for the Knesset to hold a vote of no confidence and to kick out the government. So one of the problems is that when the Israeli government gets into play, it's also parliamentary procedures, right? It is very difficult once the government's in power. So the current government in power is a bunch of people that have to coalition with a bunch of really wacko religious zealots, and so the result is it is virtually impossible to get Netanyahu out of power. He recognizes he's got to stay in power, or he will probably be investigated and go to jail, amongst other things. So he's trying to stay in power as well. Iranian religious nutcases are doing the same thing. And I'm just saying the whole Middle East, what are the confluence as Israel's hand in it and Iran's hand in it, and to have them both have nukes that are willing to use on each other is a bad sign.
And I think we should take our nuke away from Israel, because that's our, like, I don't think they have the South Africa. I think they have some of ours, or like some of ours are parked over there, and they're just kind of being big kid on the block, and they think that they can bully everybody because our shit is parked over there. Like, that's fucked up. Like, you shouldn't do that. Like, that's you know what I mean? Like, that's a breaking case of emergency. Hitler's back and he's a zombie. Drop the nuke. You know what I mean? It's that level of, I think it should be that level of war going on to even consider using a nuke. but
Yeah.
for them to just like use that as a shield, and this just in, it looks like the Iron Dome got pierced. They got missiles coming in. It's came in 5 hours ago.
Yeah.
Like this is like, I don't like, none of this is going to work out well. And like like all of the civilians caught up in what, 4 different countries now because of this bullshit, the billions of dollars going into nothing, and people, you know what I mean? Like this is all bad. You feel me? Like I hate every single bit of this.
If I were wanting to work on nuclear non-proliferation in the Middle East, I would say, Israel, you've got to come to the table and you've got to denuke as well.
Yep.
Right.
Because then everybody feels like like they don't have a knife in their back. Like everyone's got to denuke.
So if it's, and I'm sorry if you think because I said something bad about Hamas that you go and pull that, Free Palestine thing. I would prefer a 2-state solution. I think the problem is I think that Oslo Accord is sadly dead, and we got to get it back on track. We got to keep people to start talking with each other rather than building up the ability to nuke each other. And even though it's not your home, you may not be living in the Middle East area. You're going to be affected. The problem is going to happen is that when one of the sides gets to the point of building a thing that could go boom, and again, Iran has enough material that if they figured out how to do the metallurgy, and they did even a Hiroshima style thing, it would work. And it would be a matter of, and if it's maybe too big to fit in a rocket, but there's other ways to get essentially a railroad car of stuff to a place and set it off. That's a recipe for the death of millions of people. And what's going to be sad is that when that third nuke goes off in war, the world will not end. But people say, oh, is that okay? So millions of people die, but the world doesn't end. You don't have this nuclear thing because it's just one device. So someone says, hey, I got a score with this tribe, so let me go and grab something off the black market. And you say, what do you mean, what black market? There are thousands of metric tons of plutonium sitting in Russia, which is suffering a economic hardship. And you've got oligarchs who have no morals that are willing to sell stuff out there, or Kim Jong-un and his stuff, right? It's now we have ways of dealing with that. We have ways of figuring out how to do it. But again, this is not a Israeli thing or a Trump thing and so forth. This is a reality of we're very close to nuclear weapons. That doomsday needle is really close to midnight, right? And the sad thing is that the next weapon that goes off is going to cause people to say, "Oh, well, I can do that too," and that's where we get this cascade of weapons of mass destruction that's going to be terrible.
Hey, I got something on the lighter side of news.
Hi, Tim.
Have you
Hi,
seen
Tim.
Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
What?
Tell me.
The
New comptroller Brad Lander detained by ICE. Wow. Oh, he was on the debate stage.
Yes, he was one of the people on the mayoral debate stage
when Mom Donnie burned down the joint.
Apparently, he was detained after an incident inside an immigration court in the city. Says a spokesman for his campaign. He was taken by masked agents and detained by ICE as he was escorting a defendant out of an immigration court.
What the? Yo, anybody who looks brown, like what is going on right now?
Or if you are somebody who is aiding and abetting the Underground Railroad, you're a target of. So yeah, I'll say that when the Reichstag elected Hitler as chancellor and began to cement his power, one of the things he did was to have high-profile detainments of people that could cause him problems.
I'm going to try and find a video of it.
If you try to study the rise, because it wasn't a matter of Hitler was elected chancellor, immediate dictatorship. There was a path that they rose to in order to have total control over the German war machine.
There is apparently a live protest going on outside that immigration center now.
Pull it up.
Moral, and in more cases that's going on up here, it is a violation of our rights. And so I want to thank Comptroller Lander and everybody who showed up today. But this is just one step, and we are not backing down. This is a flashpoint, and our community needs to stand up. We need to see members of Congress, elected officials, faith leaders, allies coming, unions, labor, candidates, come here. See what is going on. Bear witness. Put your body on the line. This is how we fight fascism, and now is the time to do it. Thank you very much.
This is local news, Fox 5.
You're going to have to angle down, homie.
What we saw this morning,
Mr. Mayor,
was Controller Lander asking ICE to follow the law, asking them to show a judicial warrant signed by a judge. And we have to be clear that in his ask and in their response, we saw that ICE has no interest in the law. It has no interest in order. It only has an interest in terrorizing people across this country. And in this exact moment, New Yorkers and Americans are looking.
Fucking New York and their goddamn sirens.
I just drove through New York. There's a lot of sirens.
The stark contrast from the collaboration and the cowardice we have seen. And what Brad did was engage in that very moment of courage. He showed us what leadership can look like. And for that, he was arrested. And we have to be clear about this. This is not about an election. This is about ensuring that we protect the city and the country that we love. This is about ensuring that immigrant New Yorkers who come here for regular check-ins do not need to being separated from their families in the most brutal and cruel ways imaginable. And we know that today's arrest is but one example of what ICE is doing every single day across this country. And as much as we speak about it in the context of Los Angeles, we also know that that authoritarianism is here in New York City. It is here in New York City as a public high school student by the name of Dylan was detained and taken hundreds of miles away from his mother and his two siblings. It is here in New York City that even as the courts have found the continued detention of
I'll let him finish up here.
to be unlawful, he still languishes in an ICE detention facility in Louisiana. And I want to commend my friend
I had to get
and
him into the
Controller
5th district
Lander
where all
for
his friends are.
showcasing that cruelty in just one moment, where he asked that they follow the very laws that have kept New Yorkers safe for decades. Because no matter how much fear-mongering there is from this mayor, from this president, we know that these sanctuary city policies,
let him
this
in the
requirement to showcase that signed
Rikers.
judicial warrant for an ICE agent to
Fucking
go
fire
into
truck.
a school or a hospital or a city property or a property
York,
of a city
man.
contractor. It is that
Something's
very
always
law
on fire.
that used to be
God.
defended by Democrats and Republicans alike, as it was shown to keep New Yorkers safe. And when we are asked in this moment to give up those policies, give up those New Yorkers, we know that were they to be the law elsewhere in this country, there would be more Americans who would be at home with their families. As we think about Kilmar coming home from El Salvador, we know that the municipality he was in Maryland, where he was taken by ICE, if they had sanctuary city policies, he too would never have gone to El Salvador.
God damn.
This today is an example of what it means to stand up for immigrant New Yorkers and all New Yorkers. And it is why I and so many others call for the immediate release of Controller Lander. The immediate release. A release that must occur if we have any respect for law, any respect for order, and any respect for the values of this city.
He just won the election.
Oh yeah, with this, yeah.
A mockery of those very
He's
things.
talking like he's the mayor.
An act of cruelty.
Yeah, he's
in
winning
every
the primary
ounce
for
of
sure.
Every action that we saw in that video. And we need Controller Lander to be released, and we need immigrant New Yorkers and Americans across this country to
They're
be
gonna
safe
vote for this
from
guy.
Trump's ICE agents, no matter where they are, be it their apartment building lobby, on their street, on the subway, wherever they are as they move about their lives, because they belong in this country just as we do. Thank you so much.
All right, Mike, you got a video?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
23-year-old Elzon Lemus was in his work van with a coworker when they were pulled over by ICE agents in Westbury.
What's up, guys? Let me see your ID, please.
Lemus
Driving while Hispanic.
in New York and was stunned.
I felt like my rights were just like out the window, and like it's like that. It felt like I didn't have anything. And what's this for?
What's that?
What's this for?
Because you look like somebody local.
Because you look like someone I'm looking for.
You
What
look
happened?
like a driving while Hispanic. That's probably what he was. That's a translation.
Oh, two of you in a work truck? Oh yeah. Here we go. Here we go.
And
Looking for?
Yeah, just
Attorney Fred Brewington says this case is an example of profiling.
Unless there is an articulable basis upon which there is a reason to ask someone for their identification, which this officer did not provide upon a request, there's a concern there.
let me see your ID, please.
What is this for though?
All right, this is gonna go one of two ways here.
This is gonna go on.
These people are not serious about law enforcement.
No.
by
They're
the way,
not.
he's asking the passenger, not the driver,
Correct.
for license registration, right?
Correct.
And the passenger could say at this stage,
I
you know,
plead the fifth.
officer, am I being detained or am I free to go? Officer says, you're not free to go. Then you say, I reserve the right to remain silent. I will not answer questions unless an attorney is present. Because you know you're going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
But
Don't
you need to
say nothing.
when you invoke your right to remain silent, you got to do it at the right time, because the court, that Supreme Court, wackos, has said if you say it too early, it doesn't count. Right? Think about this. You're driving along, and the lights flash behind you, and you pull over. You can't say I reserve the right to remain silent in your car. That doesn't count, right? The cop comes up and says license or registration, which they're allowed to do, and you give the license or registration over. Again, you can't say right remain silent, blah 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 blah. It's when the checking for license registration and time it takes to issue a ticket exceeds a reasonable amount. You then say, officer, am I free to go? Because you've gotten your ticket, but they keep dawdling, taking a long time. Like, are they going to issue a ticket or not? And so you say, officer, I'm free to go. If they say yes, then you just politely leave. If they say no, then you say, at the point you say, officer, I reserve the right to remain silent. I will not answer any further questions without an attorney present, right? At that point, you've invoked your right, and then you remain silent. Because one of the sad things about the court has done is if you just say nothing,
Right.
that doesn't count. The courts, unfortunately, the Supreme Court has said you've got to invoke it when you are being detained, not before,
Correct.
not afterwards. Because something as simple as saying, the officer says, well, I just want to talk with you. Where are you going? Or where do you live?
Right.
Or are you a citizen? If you answer that question, you have waived your right to remain silent because you're no longer silent. So if you evoke it too early, it doesn't count. If you got to evoke it when you have been detained. This is not legal advice. There are other lawyers who will tell you this, but this is a part of the problem. Now, if you're a passenger, if I were a passenger on that side and they're done light registration and they want to come and talk to me, it's like, officer, am I being detained or I'm free to go? No, you got to do this sort of thing. It's going to go two ways. At that point, you say, officer, I reserve the right to remain silent and I will not answer any questions without attorney present, and you keep your mouth shut. Also, having a camera running is a good thing to do, as they did, because officer can turn off the body cam.
Right.
Especially you're talking about people posing as ICE agents or doing the work for ICE to turn you over to them. That's really critical. And this administration has very clearly said, where our political opponents are concentrated, we want to bother those people. We want to violate their rights. And guess what, MAGA people? The Constitution, protection Constitution, protects people who are also illegally here. They're not, if you're not a legal status, you're still protected under the Constitution. I know that might upset people who want to get them out, those Mr. Garrisons of our community. But you know, the Constitution is for everyone, not just the ones you like.
Right.
What do you think, Tim? What's
I mean, police in America have always acted with a certain amount of lack of respect for the people that they're, you know, stopping or talking to, and you know, they just assume the worst. I mean, they're trained to assume the worst. So, you know, especially these ICE agents going around and detaining people, like they don't even care about asking the questions. They're just like, what do you got? Where are your papers? Give me your papers. Like, that's it. Papers, please.
So I have been in a citizen ceremony for people become U.S. citizens, right? And
right.
I've sponsored people in those things, and they've achieved citizen watch thing. One of the things that they do in the citizens thing is they explain to you, now that you're a U.S. citizen, here's a document, right, that says, a nice fancy document saying you're now a U.S. citizen. And they say, this document is for your ceremonial purposes and members only. You are never required as a U.S. citizen to prove that you're a citizen. You do not required to show documentation of proof you're a citizen. That's one of your rights as a citizen.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's
and I'll explain to new citizens, saying this document, keep it as a nice memento. You are never required to show this as proof because you are a U.S. citizen, and the Constitution has protection as well. But as I say, and by the way, in case you think, oh, Landon is one of these anti-cop persons, wrong again. You know, as when I was a public official in Sunnyvale, my campaign staff had people like the secretary of the Peace Officers Union. I was nominated by Poor Act Peace Officers Association as one of the legislators of the year. I had really good working relationships with our public safety people who did a number of things to try to prevent crime rather than fight criminals.
Right. Yeah.
We were one of the safest cities in the world. So it's not that thing, oh, Landon's just being anti-cop. No. In fact, good cops will say what this dude is doing is wrong.
Well, and a lot of these ICE people, they're not regular cops. Like their sole job is not to serve and protect. It's to find people. Whether or not they're the actual people they're looking for is not, they don't really care. They're just out to find people to deport. That's all they care about.
And the MAGA infected Trump administration has pushed anti-immigrant people into ICE. They've encouraged, they've given them quotas. And in fact, you might find that some of the people that have had a background of harassing minorities are now signing up for lucrative ICE jobs because now you have carte blanche to do things.
Yeah. I did find the video, a 19-second clip of the thing. I want it. You know, I hate StreamYard sometimes.
And
there we go.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Again, we're following breaking news right now. Now take a look at this video. It's just into Fox 5 showing New York City Comptroller and mayoral candidate Brad Lander being arrested by ICE. Now, this happened at an immigration court hearing in Lower Manhattan. He was trying to accompany a person out of a courtroom. The person Lander was walking out of the courtroom also arrested.
So automatically for me, I hate the plain clothes shit. I hate the face masks and I hate the plain clothes shit.
Yes.
You're doing something official. There should be reporting of this. There should be badge numbers. there is 1,000,000% in the negative accountability on any of this.
Yeah, because the way the law works is if there's somebody in a courtroom being, a case for jaywalking or serious crime, and the judge releases them on their own recognizance or their sentence or whatever, you get a warrant for the person's arrest. The person comes out and you present them saying, we have a warrant for your arrest, blah blah blah. Please come with us. Right? That's the way you do it legally. You don't whisk them off to Louisiana out of the state,
right,
to try to minimize the ability of a court to do something about it, because you want to get this quota, right?
Yeah.
This is Jim Crow, where they say we have to get this many of these whats in jail this time because that's our quota, to get them off the streets and to keep them under control. This is what's happening, right?
It's 3,000 people a day. That's the quota. That's what Stephen Miller said. 3,000.
And it's 3,000 people a day not from a place like Tulsa, Oklahoma,
right?
But from a place that actually has people with a little bit of compassion. Now, is somebody who is in the United States without proper documentation, who's not a U.S. citizen, is that a problem? Yes. But you know what? Congress has been trying to establish a way for people to legally become residents or citizens, pay their taxes. But instead, they're driving underground. It's the same sort of thing. It's just like, tacking marijuana. You make it illegal, you drive underground and say, hey, let's legalize it. Have a path where it can be done responsibly, where people have background checks and checking of things. And if they have a problem, they're expelled. They're tracking, tracking stuff. All those attempts in Congress to try to fix the problem die because they're much more interested in attacking them. And you hear what Agent Orange is doing in his so-called Truth Social, Twitter on steroids.
Which is just crazy.
Them people, them Democrats are using these folks to vote illegally and no,
right?
That's not what's happened.
He's had many election cases in court. Hasn't won a single one of them, but he's been in court about elections a fair few many times. So he's very knowledgeable about these things. This motherfucker can't even spell his own name, yet he wants to say that he can prove that all of this. Like, everybody who told you those lies is in jail, or is paying a hefty restitution. Isn't that right, Rudy? Or Rudy?
yeah. And so the Trump's, one of his mentors, Holmes, was the chief assistant to McCarthy, to Senator McCarthy, the McCarthy hearings, the McCarthyism, right? The guy who was helping the senator do his wave of destroy the Constitution stuff because people were un-American, right? And he's the chief mentor that taught Trump how to behave. And Trump idolizes and reveres him. And Trump says, if it's quote protecting the country, it's never illegal, right? That's his king thing he does. The moral arc of the universe is long, as it takes time, but it bends towards justice. I believe eventually Trump and people like him will face justice that they deserve. It's going to take some time.
About 18 months.
I'm
predicting crazy things in this midterms, though. I've already walked out on the ledge, as it were.
But Tim and Mikey, think about this. Okay, pretend you're the MAGA people that want to remain in power, and you know the economy is not doing so well, and your people are
it's about to get way worse.
And you know you can't run on economic prosperity and jobs and the price of eggs and other things like that for things out of control. So what do? How do you remain in control?
I'm so sick of these blacks.
These and Mexicans and
taking all our jobs.
Chinese and it's so do you find an enemy within and an enemy without? That's the two things. You find those two things.
Used to have.
These uppity women.
Oh yeah.
Those uppity women now.
There you go.
They want the right to choose. We'll split people on.
That's what I would do. I would go straight to social issues. But I think at this point, even MAGA's out of social issues.
Well, but
they've already won them all.
But if you can inflame places that will fight back, then you get the newsreels to focus on the 5 Waymo cars that are lit on fire and other things that are telegenic, right?
Yeah.
If you watch a live footage of, like, say, a helicopter over LA, you watch not the newsreel, but watch them, and you watch how they're flying around trying to find something that's going to go on the 11 o'clock news. And say, oh, hey, here's somebody, they have a Mexican flag and they look angry. Let's see if we can, maybe the cops are over here. Is this going to be, no, over here. Let's look at it. Oh, look, somebody pointing a laser. We can get the rest, right? They focus on those things to do what? To get you in front of advertisers. Remember, news now is a profit center for you, the product, to go to their customers. The customers of news are advertisers. So they get you that news cycle to say, look at these bad people. Let's find somebody who is in the country illegally, who's a terrible person, that's done a terrible crime, and focus on that, right? That's the problem there. And so that's what they're going to do in the midterms. We're going to have a crisis, like maybe it's the Israeli-Iran war, maybe it's a nuke. Maybe it's a U.S. invading Panama. Maybe it's whoever, right? Who knows what it is? And they'll have internal wars as well, right? Chicago, right? Because you look at what Trump said: New York, Chicago, L.A., San Francisco, Seattle, places run by Democrats, blah blah blah. And we're going to focus on those things because we know those places will fight back, and
I'm not sure he wants to come to Chicago.
I'm not sure he wants too much of New York or Boston either. Boston don't fuck around.
You gotta remember the fucking pieces of shit in Indiana who refuse to have any sort of gun regulations have been fueling the city for decades. Don't do it to yourself, man. Like there's tons of responsible gun owners, but if he goes in there trying to do gangbusters, they're gonna be losing whole squadrons of dudes. Y'all better chill. Like that is the hood. And they're gonna pull up to that block and be like, whoa, I think I left something on the stove.
Yeah. So, and then it probably is a little bit safer from the current attack set. But again, if you look at the playbook of how authoritarians do it, they identify an enemy. They say, you, the member of the public, are miserable because we got these people, right? We got these trans people and these illegal immigrants and these radical rioters. And look, we got evil people on the outside doing bad things. So they don't say, we'll solve it. They say, look, these bad things. They point. You say, yeah, this guy understands me. He understands my anger. And the Murdoch press feeds you that little thing to hype you up, to try to get you to say, yes, we need, you say, I don't really like some of the stuff that Trump does, but he's going to get them bad people, right? That's the next hook. I'm not so convinced that the midterms are going to make a change in Congress because they have capable of creating enemies outside and inside. The Murdoch press is reporting on what is LA, playing in Peoria and Cheyenne, Wilmington. Those are grabbing the attention of people saying, yeah, I'm miserable. And look, he's got these bad people that he's got to get.
I have a pretty strong counter. The economy sucks.
Yeah.
You said cheaper eggs. You said cheaper gas. You said no tech. You said this. You said that. It didn't happen. You said I was getting a Doge check. Didn't happen. I know dudes who spent money because they were expecting that $5,000 to show up.
Now,
and
the other side of the coin,
there are broken promises, and that is exactly what has failed the Democrats over and over and over again. You can't promise the world and offer nothing. He can offer more more bloodshed and more war, but that is also one of the things he ran on, was not having any wars. So starting a war, no economy. I kind of like Mexican people. Like, I don't want the bad ones here, but you're really fucking up the whole community. Like, he can't. I don't know that he can sell this. This is not really sellable.
I understand. I'm not saying it's a done deal. I'm saying this is how you do it.
And no Elon money this time.
Yeah.
I think that Elon, having realized that his pseudo wealth could be destroyed by Trump saying no more tax credits, right? Because the insane price, this is not financial advice, please consult a financial advisor before acting on this thing, of Tesla stock. When you look at what they produce, their profit and loss, not the carbon credits and the Bitcoin scamming they do, Tesla is not a profitable company. In my evaluation of Tesla, its books of what it produces and what it sells, I would think a $4 a share of a Tesla stock would be what I would consider worth a fair trade, not the hundreds of dollars, right? And Elon's not the richest person. He's got a bunch of cult followers who don't realize that he is the biggest scammer on the planet. His SpaceX is ridiculous. SpaceX can't even do mid-1960s rocket technology. The solar tiles and the boring tunnel and the Hyperloop and the Tesla semi and the Tesla truck, you name it. He is a scammer of the highest order, and he only has pseudo money because people are willing to pay for Tesla stock at an insane value, right? So, and a Tesla owner, you are aiding and abetting this Musk guy. I'm sorry you got stuck with a crap car. And when I'm driving and I see a Tesla, I say, I'm very sorry for that person. Too bad you had to buy that piece of crap.
I think Elon's got other moves though, but he's already got his city. You know what I mean? He's pumped as much money into his pocket as he can. He got as much restrictions off his stuff. He got rid of all of his court cases that he had for spraying rocket fuel all over the Everglades. Like he got he's gotten away with what he wants, and he's still got his largest plant in China, where all the minerals are, and he's like, well, shit's fucking blowing up over here. I'll just fucking go back to my little city that they gave me zoning for. Thanks, Texas. He has his own little corporate town now. He can hide from all of his assassins, and he can just hide in it, and he's going to wait this out.
And by the way, don't vandalize people's cars. Don't attack people like Musk.
Feed the birds near their car.
That's ICE global crap, right? Don't do that. Yeah. But do realize that if one of the things that Musk seems to be doing, one of his possibilities of escape actions is to say, oh, I'm stepping down as CEO of Tesla. As if Tesla somehow becomes this nice company again. Tesla owners and Tesla stock holders aided and abetted and created the monster that is Musk. If Tesla were properly valued, Musk would be a billionaire, but just one of the small billionaires. Right. He would not have political influence. He'd not be doing Nazi salutes. He would not be trying to destroy the regulators that bring him to account.
And then for everyone to gaslight us like it wasn't a Nazi salute. Like, come on, man. You heard him grunting in between. I'm like,
those,
come on, man.
Those that understand the apartheid system, right? The apartheid and the post-apartheid government, people that are in that radical Afrikaans set, they had their Nazi things that they would whitewash, pun intended, to make it not so obvious, right? And that little symbol there, you go to an anti-apartheid rally, you'll see some thugs trying to show up and do that thing to incite folks. That's a classic a racist South African attempt to do that. And by the way,
not a Roman salute.
not all the racists in South Africa are white.
Yeah. It's a different
talking about
different place.
Yeah. Julius Malina and so forth. Yes, but anyway, he learned about how to be a racist son of a bitch from his parents and from growing up in South Africa.
I forgot. This is still here.
All right, this is gonna go one of two ways here. Okay. Need to see your ID. If you're not the guy I'm looking for, you're not the guy I'm looking for.
So who are you actually?
Like, I don't know.
What is he in the mob?
This guy thinks he is such a fucking gangster right now. Like,
maybe you're the guy. Well, maybe you don't.
But this is classic.
This is a gang.
Police tactics, right?
And gang activity.
And what they're trying to get that guy to do is to waive his right to remain silent because he's now answered questions. And I understand it is not the case of, oh, if you just give me your ID, I'll let you go. Hey, he was going to jail anyway. Now he's got a problem because his right to remain silent has been greatly, severely impacted, right?
What you looking for? Because definitely not us.
Well, listen, if it's not you, then it's not your business who we're looking for, right? If I'm looking for you, do you want me broadcasting your business to everybody else in the world? No.
Lemus was taken out of the car, handcuffed for about 25 minutes while the ICE agents searched him. When they found his ID, they let him go.
Why does that dude need like 3 clips on his fucking vest? Who is he?
No. What
is he doing with 3 ammo clips?
And why did they let him go? Because he's not good for their quota, right?
Yeah, because he's a citizen.
Now some of them are dumb enough to do that over citizens as well. It depends on how it is.
And then I'm like, well, why didn't you give me your ID faster? That's failure to ID. La da da da.
Yeah. So the answer is if he's saying, so the car, you say, officer, I'm free to go. No, step out of the car. Then you say, officer, I reserve, invoke the right to remain silent. I will not answer any questions until I have my attorney present. And then you shut up. You do not answer any questions. Do you not engage in conversation? So that's the mistake the guy did. And schools need to teach people their rights. They need to teach you how to do this stuff. Because again, you're not interfering with police, so you're not creating trouble. But at this stage, you can guarantee you're going into detention, maximize your rights, and let the cops know that you're not going to answer any questions without an attorney present.
So
not good advice, seek legal advice for this stuff, but
I have to make good on something from a week ago, so I'm gonna share.
Oh boy!
So I went to the No King's Day protest.
Ooh.
And
un-American to you,
in my town,
un-American stuff.
And I have to make good on a super chat. So here it is.
Oh, you skipped forward. Hold on, we missed.
Let's go back to the one. I like that one. King George III. Yeah. Guess what? British monarchy. How dare you name one of your spawn, one of your conceptions, George? Right? The little George, King George. How do you have no shame on who George III was? This person who was so full of venereal disease, he was insane. Syphilis and gonorrhea in his brain, and he would talk to trees and so forth. And that's what you're proud of? Seriously, if the tree had something,
the tree had a good point.
True, that guy. All right. So tell me about this stuff.
Okay, so this is me making good on a super chat. I forget who put the super chat in for. It was like 5 or 10 pounds, but here it is. That's a sign that was recommended that I make, and I made it.
Big Black Bear greater than Big Beautiful Bill. Yeah.
Oh my God! Did he hijack it like they all lives mattered because they couldn't think of their own thing? He's like B.
And
here,
tell me your experience there. Tell me about it.
So yeah, this is the town that I live in now in Connecticut. This is how many people showed up. It was a good 300-400 people on the town green, and we all had a good time. and I only got flipped off like 4 or 5 times by people in their cars.
So how many cars did you set on fire?
We set 0 cars on fire. It was a very peaceful protest.
How many cops did you throw water bottles at?
The cops were.
When did you start firing rubber bullets at the police?
Did you? Go ahead.
The cops kept their distance. They were there to make sure that no one fucked with us.
So
what?
So how much of the curb did you hit with hammers to create rocks to throw at the police?
None. As you can see, all I had was my signs.
So is this fake news?
No, this is pretty real.
It's CGI.
Folks, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The parody.
I am mostly CGI though.
Hold on, Tim. You're on your computer, right?
Yeah.
So this is a computer generate. Oh, come on, man! It's CGI, man. Clearly, it's CGI.
Yeah, there was somebody who had a flag upside down.
Oh,
proves they were anti-American back there. Two back. One back to there. One. Where was it? Yeah. See, someone has a flag upside down. They're being un-American.
They
proves.
intentionally put the print upside down too to make your neck hurt.
Keep Medicaid. That's pretty anti-American.
How dare you?
This was also so it was a No King's Day rally, and then immediately afterwards was their like Pride festival.
Oh, there you go. That's fun.
Truth and when this whole disclosure, I believe I'm the only person on this panel that's actually cussed in the face of King Charles.
Yes, I've never met King Charles.
You know you have.
I've never seen or met him.
Yeah. Now, it was unintentional, but when I realized what I did, I didn't take it back.
I said what I said. This luckily was not at your
Investigates uncovers disturbing new information about the man arrested Saturday at Nashville's No Kings protest. Good evening, I'm Jennifer Krause. It turns out that man there to protest the protest has a long fascination with Nazis and mass murders. And now
Shocking.
What? No. What?
I'm so shocked.
Wow.
Wait, that was the wrong one. Hold on, this one. This one.
Wait a minute.
I don't trust.
Learned that he was already on the FBI's radar. Our chief investigator reported.
Then why are you waiting? What the fuck, dude? What is this? What is this hesitation? Go talk to him. It will calm him down. Let him know that he's being surveilled. They keep leaving a black balloon on my mailbox.
Reporter Phil Williams has spent hours digging through this man's online profile. And Phil, this doesn't sound like an ordinary.
How do you like that for a fucking job? Hey, I need you to look up this guy's social media footprint.
Oh, yeah. God.
Ew.
Counter-protester.
Yeah, far from it. I was on the ground Saturday, and protesters kept telling me about this man dressed all in black with a "Don't Tread on Me" flag and a gun on his hip. If they had no.
I'm going to let this play. I have to go get someone more snacks or she's going to yell the walls down.
Okay.
What I've since discovered, they might have been even more concerned. Saturday's No Kings protest in downtown Nashville was a peaceful event, drawing thousands and thousands of people upset with the direction of the country. The only hiccup, the arrest of a 19-year-old Murfreesboro man for disorderly conduct after a confrontation with protesters. The arrest warrant says Elijah Miller brandished a weapon during that confrontation. According to a witness, no one was directly pointed at, but he was spitting at people. People started yelling at him, and he pulled it out and stated he had a gun. For much of that time, Miller was live streaming, declaring on X that he was going to be, quote, counter-protesting these commies.
Commie scum!
Now, this is.
Commie scum!
Can I phrase an
Soon,
objection
exchange with a
on here? The nerve of this guy to call these people commies. The Gentlemen of Putin organization, the GOP, is so far up Putin's ass, and they're using lube, right? the Agent Orange, even at the G7 summit today, was saying you shouldn't have kicked out Putin. It should be a G8. That was unfair. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
This party, its leadership, and its accomplices in Congress are so pro-Russian. And for you to have the nerve to try to say, oh, those people are communists, right? Guess what, dude? Your government, your leadership, your movement is so pro-Putin. You say, well, Putin's not a communist. Well, no, he's trying to recreate the Soviet Union.
You're gonna add
so
America.
for you to even try to say commies, right? Guess what? Republican Party, Republican elected officials that aid and abet this administration that are pro and stuff. You are the people that are communist sympathizers, Russian sympathizers. You're the ones that have your leader you idolize at godlike, king-like level to be the most pro-Putin person, attacking U.S. interests and being pro-Russian. Shame on you.
Well, the right has co-opted socialism and communism just to mean bad things and things they don't like.
Yeah. They can't define them. We've asked. They can't do it.
It's been a concerted effort by them. It's been a talking point by them to take that and what is it called? Critical race theory, just to mean communism and stuff like that, and just take those terms and radicalize those terms so that they no longer mean what they mean.
Yeah, but I will not let GOP kind of go. I had a candidate, politely asked me for my endorsement. I said, resign from the party, and I'll consider your record until you resign from the party, and leave a party that is so pro-Putin. And by also pro-Iranian regime because of the indirect stuff, because they're Iran is doing Putin's bidding. Yeah, how dare this person? What an idiot!
Running back a little bit because I missed it.
Brandished a weapon during that confrontation. According to a witness, no one was directly pointed at, but he was spitting at people. People started yelling at him, and he pulled it out and stated he had a gun. For much of that time, Miller was live streaming, declaring on X that he was going to be, quote, counter-protesting these commies.
Oh, he has a gun and a cross, by the way.
No commie scum in America, mother.
Soon, he was in a sharp exchange with a No Kings protester who challenged him to show his face.
You are such a coward. Such a coward. Your mask off, you little man.
No, he's Nazi saluting.
Look at
the amalgamation of different political ideologies this dude has going on over here.
This is modern art.
Yes.
Like if you'd like the time and the date, like you could just freeze frame this, and it's just there's just so much going on here.
You got
so much going on.
You got the Tea Party flag, the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, which that whole
yellow tie.
The Tea Party got co-opted by rich billionaires and was just a vehicle for getting their taxes lowered.
Yerp.
Does he have the Apple logo on him?
I think that's his phone.
Is that his? That's just
his
phone.
His phone.
Okay,
that's his phone.
I thought the Apple logo was on his jacket, and I was going to be like, "What the fuck's going on there?"
No, it might be on his pocket. That's a phone. He's recording it. He's got it backwards, so he's recording.
Right, but the lens is up here, and the logo's way down here. That might be on the thing on the pocket, and then the phone, like the lenses are sticking out. Hold on, let's see if he moves a little bit.
Sorry, Apple users, you're Nazis.
Yes. Or no, you know what? Maybe that's a body cam.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the phone.
It's on there.
A body
facing
cam
forward,
it.
so he can do his phone stuff, right?
Little dictator. Oh, you're so scared.
Yeah. Then he does the Nazi salute. Yeah. There we go.
What a look!
Good job, America.
He's got those fucking gloves on that have like metal in the knuckles. Like this is the weakest bitch.
Yeah, this fucking dude is a soy boy right here.
And then he's by himself, no fucking friends. You know what I mean? It's not like him and his dudes like fucking do push-ups on concrete bricks in the garage all day, and now they're going out to this fucking counter protest. This dude is fucking, hey guys, going live in like 15. Like, you're a fucking nerd, dude. You over here fucking putting in your reminders for your fucking live stream. Oh my God.
In 2023, a post from Murfreesboro police showed he had.
Oh my goodness. Look at this.
Wow.
Been reported missing.
You skinny little 150. Boy, you better.
By his family. At the time, he was described as autistic but highly functioning. A photo shared by a friend.
Why is no one helping this young man? What is see? And this is the thing. No, hold on. Because they always want to talk about black dads, right? And how they don't never take care of their kids. They don't never want. Why are all these white boys shooting up everything? Don't have no dads. Don't have no parents. I'm just wondering. Because you don't see black dudes running around here with fucking 17 different political ideologies smorgasborded onto an outfit.
But Mikey, again, where is this location? This is in Nashville, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. If a black person were out there yelling at people, flipping people off, and so forth, how long do you think that black person would be able to stick around before the police nabbed him?
No, he would have just been killed. That would have just been he was. We have it on camera. Look, he tried to.
He had a gun on him.
See how he had that gun on his hip? I had to just take him out, preemptive strike. They do that shit all the time. They chased Ahmaud Arbery down the street for running down the street.
Friend shows the moment he was taken into custody in Ohio, charged with possessing a weapon while under disability.
Big fucking Ohio, man. Oh, yeah. Big Ohio, yeah.
Yet there he was among the No Kings protesters.
Right, they didn't spell disability. They spelled it with an I.
Yikes.
On that affidavit.
Yeah, I saw that too. And I was like, oh, no. Fuck, I lost my voice. Hold on.
Man. Oh, yeah. Big Ohio, yeah.
Oh, yeah, now I remember. These are the little motherfuckers that I have to play Call of Duty against.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
I mean, they're just the most racist little shitheads you ever meet. And I'm like, hey, man, your dad's gonna love you someday. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I'm like, oh, there it is. There's the nerve. Hey, man, you'll be off probation soon. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. All right, man. Sorry, go ahead.
There he was among the No Kings protesters with a semi-automatic pistol strapped to his hip. On his cap, he wore a dark Enlightenment patch linked to a theory that calls for ending democracy.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing about authoritarian and stuff is that democracy is something that they've got to essentially the right of the people.
Oh, man. I can't Google that.
Don't do it.
No.
They already got me reading Jordan Peterson. I can't.
I'm just saying you're gonna end up on that search list. Tim's gonna be like, hey man, I tried to fucking fly in, and then it was a pain in the Yo, we could probably never fly for like the research we do for the show. Our search history is crazy right now.
His social media shows a fascination with Nazi imagery.
You don't say.
You don't say.
As well as mass murderers.
And here's the thing. Why y'all keep hiding your face? This is the thing that kills me. We're the superior race. We're the majority. Every time they want to do something to proclaim themselves as proud, racist whites.
Yeah. So the Ku Klux Klan, this is just the KKK process where they say, yeah, we can't be too openly racist. We got to
just buy hoods. Y'all have a blueprint. This is like fucking Elon trying to reinvent the fucking Saturn V. They have the instructions written down. Just build it, motherfucker. It's not that hard. Just get the fucking white hoods. Your path has been laid out before you. We already know how to deal with Klansmen. Don't worry about it. We got a recipe for that.
For example, a horrific mass murder in Norway that left 77 people dead, including children at a youth camp. Miller expressed admiration for the neo-Nazi who carried out the killings.
Wow.
Calling the victims 77 race traitors.
A white supremacist engaged in an act of terrorism.
He also expressed admiration for the killer behind a mass shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York. Another
remember
person
that.
said he, quote, was just trying to help the blacks get their numbers up and help them get a food desert, which made the killer a hero. Miller responded,
Jesus, tap dancing Christ. Holy shit, bro.
White people, get your fucking shit together. You're fucking up. I mean, come on, man. Y'all know that is somebody's weird little brother, somebody's weird friend. Straighten his ass up. Get him a beer. Fucking get him a shower. Be his fucking friend. You leaving these little boys out here in the wilderness and they're being co-opted by fucking Nazis. Literal fucking Nazis. Stop abandoning your young men because they're undesirable. So what?
Yeah, be somebody's friend.
Be friends with these motherfuckers. Why do you think I'm friends with Tim?
Hey, whoa.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I had black friends before, Mikey.
You're not my first black friend.
You're supposed to say some of my best friends are.
Yeah, some of my best friends are African Americans.
Look at my African American over there.
Hey, I'm not white. I'm Puerto Rican.
That's true. That's true.
I just look white.
Tim got a little tahini on there. You know what I'm saying? Got a little
I'm a Puerto Rican.
I'm sorry. The closest I can get is I have Scottish heritage and support Scottish independence because Scots are. I'll tell you what. Take a Scottish pound note and try to spin it in a pub in London and see what happens to you.
Speaking of Scotland, Mikey, if you did that in Scotland, you would have been scalped by the locals chased out of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume that Scotland doesn't fuck around.
Yeah, I don't know what a scalping is, but I don't want to get one. I'm not trying to get scalped. It's my birthday coming up.
Was especially fond of the person who murdered 51 Muslims at Christchurch, New Zealand, seeming to imitate the shooter's style when he posted his, quote, scribbles on a new shotgun. Among them, this inscription, "This machine kills commies."
Sure it does.
Drop your Twitch, meaning a live stream video we will be watching. Miller answered, need to get a helmet and GoPro first.
You ain't got no GoPro.
This is on Twitter. You don't have no this is why you y'all are gonna hate it. You gotta regulate it. If you're gonna want to AI everything, the AI, there needs to be some sort of AI that is watching out for fucking these dudes.
Yeah.
They used to have moderation and people could fucking like report stuff. But Elon fired all those fucking people, and Zuckerberg is not going to do a goddamn thing.
Yeah.
But these
full disclosure on Twitter. I'm the N and FNP hash, which is one of the fundamental hashes ops that was used by Twitter. And when the people that I have friends in Twitter, when they were saying, "Hey, looks like the big cheeses are selling this place," I suggest you head for the hills, which meant take your data, export it, and leave. And so I left Twitter before Space Karen took it over. And I do recommend, please do not log into Twitter. Do not send Twitter links to people. Yeah, I'm dead naming it, but just essentially avoid the platform and don't give me this. Oh, but my friends are on it. Stop using that platform. Stop sharing that platform. Just cut it out. You wouldn't go to a neo-Nazi site and share links about their content willy-nilly.
I thought that was Twitter.
Stop using Twitter, and don't give me the excuse of, well, about my friends. Stop using it. Just leave it alone. Let it go away.
But I need to see all the AI porn ads.
Oh yeah, how am I going to get my AI porn without Twitter?
Because you're aiding and abetting Elon Musk, and you're aiding and abetting the things that he promotes.
Yeah, but he promotes AI porn.
And if you're going to use Twitter and have excuses for stuff, accept the consequences that you're part of the problem.
What if I go on there and I only mock him?
Doesn't because he's using people even logging in or sharing links to try to get advertisers to give him money to try to recover some of his.
But we're all poor.
But what if I share the links to the AI porn?
Yeah,
we'll just go there for the links.
Yeah.
So if someone sends you a Twitter link with something, first thing I would do is to send a message saying, please don't send me Twitter links. I don't click on them. I would then, if it's something you want to put in the news, I would do an image capture of the content and share the image, but don't even click on the link. Abscond with their stuff but if you log in, you're using stuff, you're using their ability to try to get advertisers to pay them more money for their ads. Let the process die. Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution.
But what if I ask Grok about what's going on in South Africa?
So Grok, by the way, one of the things that Grok does is it inhales its own farts, right? The content you feed Grok is used to train Grok.
The robot visual my brain just made is hilarious.
Grok's mouth is bent over. It's bypassed the thing it would normally suck, and it's pulling out the gases coming out the other side. And it just is recycling crap. It is a bad system. And understand that what you feed Grok does several things. It adds to its content, and it adds to their information about who you are. Don't go anywhere near Grok.
Fucking
Grok. No. It's sad because it's a nice science fiction term, but yeah.
What if I ask Grok about AI porn?
Because one of the things
goes like, check your DMs.
and by the way, Grok does sell information to data collectors.
That's actually my last story. We're gonna talk about that.
All right, I have. Okay,
please,
let's finish this one.
Yeah, let's.
All right.
Among his other posts, Miller declared last July, "No more running from me, Reapers calling my name." In December, he posted, "Things are about to happen." The photo included a handgun and the book, "Democracy, the God That Failed."
Why is he a fucking weeaboo?
Why is he a weeb? What the fuck?
God.
If this kid is so fucking hard, like he's pretending to be,
and
why is he just waving?
Why didn't you just wave that flag in Sig Heil? This kid is so fucked in the head.
By the way, he's not a lone wolf. He's got a bunch of people around him aiding and abetting and encouraging this stuff.
Oh, check his Discord. 100%.
Posted by Miller himself showed that Murfreesboro police visited his home in April after someone in Turkey alerted them about Miller's online activity.
Someone in Turkey was like, "Hey, this dude might be suspect."
His bedroom, but he would later post an.
Oh, that's a VPN, dog. You know that from Turkey. That's a VPN.
That's a VPN. Just some random dude be like, "Guys, this guy's sus."
He's just scrolling through the timeline. He's like, "Whoa." Let me Google the number for Tennessee.
So people like this should be on the FBI's watch list, not ICE stuff.
Not this FBI.
But we have an administration that pardoned hundreds of people like this. Those January 6th insurrectionists are out in the community fermenting. I would say there's a reasonable chance that within the social network of this dude in Nashville is a person who was pardoned by Trump. That's a pretty good
for sure. There's probably 2 degrees of separation for that. I'm sure.
Alistair MCO with 2 British pounds. Sorry, that kid is fucked up in the head. Yeah. You need to be away from the rest of us for quite some time.
Image of a gun with a right-wing manifesto saying the attention of him being busted had made him popular.
Man, I'm not going to be violent. I'm like your people. I'm not going to be violent. I'm like your people, man.
While Miller told other protesters he had no plans to be violent.
Man, angle your camera up.
As he's given people plenty of reason to be concerned. Over the weekend, I reached out.
She said fucking pussy. They didn't believe it.
Oh, by the way,
A violent
Bill Williams,
online hit.
shame on you being part of Twitter. You disgusting Elon enabler. I don't care. The guy that's coming forward.
Oh, the reporter?
Yeah.
History suggests he's given people plenty of reason to be concerned. Now, over the weekend, I reached out to Mr. Miller on his X account, and he declined to comment. But tonight, Metro Police tell me that they have had 2 interactions with him.
I'm talking about an X account, the guy, not the reporter. I'm sorry.
Have been stolen. Turns out his mother had simply hidden them. The next day, officers were back at the house after getting a report from the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force about his online activities. That time, his mother let them take a shotgun and a handgun, along with ammunition. Those are still in police custody.
So I apologize. I was not the reporter. I was talking about the reporter was advertising his Twitter handle. It's the wacko dude. So apologies.
All good. So we had more domestic terrorism because
this episode is dark. I just want to point that out. This is dark stuff.
Yeah, it's not this is the job. You know,
it's the external enemy, internal enemies. Focus on those things so that you don't have to be accountable for what you're doing to the economy. Exactly. You don't have to be accountable to the libertarian malaise that you are enabling and embedding, and don't have to be accountable to the things you're doing. Sad thing, Tim and Mikey, sad thing is, years from now, we will realize the depth of horror. We have no idea just how horrid things are right now within the White House, within the administration. We only get the tippy top things.
Yeah.
Oh, I assume it's all cocaine and ketamine.
So much ketamine.
Whatever Elon left behind.
Why couldn't they be on marijuana? Because they at least be stoners and like, hey, dude.
You know what?
If they would just try to smoke once, then they would legalize it. They should just try it one time.
I'm gonna blame it all on Stephen Miller. He's probably like, no, marijuana's for hippies, guys. We got to do this fucking cocaine.
Don't you want to be manly like me? Looking like Dobby with a fresh sock.
Your news tonight with a look at the state capitol memorial for Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark.
This night has been growing throughout the day, as you can imagine. Messages and tributes left by community members and colleagues alike.
A 43-hour manhunt ended last night with Vance Belcher taken into custody. The charges against him announced this morning.
Fox 9's Mary McGuire was there as Belcher walked into the courtroom, and federal prosecutors then laid out their case. Mary joins us live now. And Mary, a couple things. Let's start with those federal charges, which we didn't have until today.
Well, Randy, I was sitting just a few feet away from Belcher as he made his first appearance in court today. He was wearing a traditional orange jumpsuit, but was not shackled and appeared very casual as he was chatting with his attorney. He did ask the court to appoint him an attorney, saying that he could not afford one on his own. He is now in federal custody, accused of killing and trying to kill multiple politicians here in Minnesota. Vance Belcher extensively
henceforth, I'm just gonna call this assassin motherfucker. I'm not saying his name.
Yeah. I just want to point out that Minnesota's going through it because below that is a little ticker there for a tornado watch. Like, goddamn.
Yeah, but guess what? MAGA Doge people have destroyed much of the data network to predict where tornadoes are going to go and to try to, and then when they strike, Agent Orange has said FEMA ain't going to help you. So they got you coming and they got you going. But screw this guy.
Stalked his victims and took detailed notes on them, researching their home addresses.
So there you go.
Yeah.
You want to talk about data? BeenVerified.com, Ownerly.com, so you can get people's addresses. USSearch.com. These are the data brokers.
Yes.
So now anybody who's a psychopath gets on there, pays whatever exorbitant fee or whatever that they feel like paying, or however much they can get out of them. This is what they do.
Yeah. And guess what? The government buys from the data brokers. It used to be they have to go to a FISA court to get a warrant. Now the government just asks the people that pay money to Facebook and to Google and places like that, and Grok. So the government doesn't have to spy on you and get a court order. They just buy it from the data brokers who've done the analysis in advance.
We got a $2 super chat from Greg. He is getting due process, and I support that. Yes,
absolutely.
Due process.
I don't like it, but I support it.
Everyone
internally, I would internally, I would like for other things to happen, but I understand that this is the correct process.
And people like him, due process is so important. The due process is most important for the people that are not telegenic, right? That's where you begin to hold the line.
Mikey, you said
I hope he has a good attorney to make sure he has all of his rights protected, unlike what he probably wants for people he doesn't like.
Mm-hmm.
That's your data, dumbass.
Alistarum, what is this? 2
British pounds.
How many is on his list, by the way, guys?
They will say it right next, I think.
Yeah, look for that.
Phone numbers and information on their family members before carrying out his murderous attack.
The details of Belter's crime are even worse. They are truly chilling. It is no exaggeration to say that his crimes are the stuff of nightmares.
Those details are laid out in a 6-count federal criminal complaint that includes charges of stalking, shooting, and murder that carry punishments of life in prison or even death. Wearing this realistic mask and tactical gear, authorities say Belter.
Why are we selling these masks and tactical gear and an SUV, like a retired cop car, and then all the lights and all the? Why are you letting one person aggregate all of this at once?
Yeah,
like you can't go to a grocery store and buy 20 packs of batteries. Not because, you might have a whole bunch of toys at home. It's because you're obviously going to take that home, cut them open, and start using those ingredients to make meth. That is like, there are limits on things. Why are we still selling ski masks? Like,
yeah, I don't.
It's the desert, homie. Where are you skiing?
And by the way,
ain't no snow, ain't no mountains.
As somebody who is a frequent visitor to the South Pole, you don't use ski masks,
right?
For ultra cold. That's not the but back to say, the sad thing is the radical groups that support killing of people who are providing medical services. This guy's already a hero. I suspect if you go on their sites, you'll see heroic things praising this guy as being a one of their true heroes.
Morons.
First went to State Senator John Hoffman's home in Champlin around 2 a.m. Saturday.
Belter knocked on Senator Hoffman's front door and repeatedly shouted, "This is the police. Open the door."
The Hoffmans opened the door, but quickly realized he was wearing a mask and pushed him out of the home. He then began firing, hitting Hoffman and his wife multiple times. From there, he traveled to Maple Grove, but no one was at the state representative's home he targeted. Around 2:30 that morning, law enforcement in New Hope spotted Belter's fake police car outside a state senator's home, but thought he was police surveilling the home. But
you don't do one radio check, man.
Yeah, right.
You don't sit there and say, "Can I assist?"
You don't just say, "Hey, who's at 14?" No, I'm 14. Yeah. Like, who the fuck? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you not know that that's not your guy? Maybe it's the heightened situation. Maybe they're responding to other things, but that seems like a huge miss to not catch that wasn't a real cop car as a cop.
By the time they checked in with this,
spot my fucking license plate.
Maybe they said,
it's 2 miles away, but
maybe they said it's just an ICE agent doing their job.
And that's another problem with having a random motherfuckers claiming to be police all the time.
Yeah, or just like dressing like police, but not actually being like fucking cops.
By the way, again, this is not legal advice, but consult a lawyer doing it. When the cops knock on your door, you're not required to answer it.
Nope.
In fact, I would recommend you not, right? If there's a problem, you go in and call 911 and say, "What's the deal?" You don't talk to the people outside. If they got a warrant, they'll show a warrant.
They're coming in anyway. You ain't got to worry about it. Oh yeah, I missed this from earlier. Translucent fractional Boricua gang. There you go.
So let's continue forward this.
Left the area. About an hour later, Belter arrived at Representative Melissa Hortman's home in Brooklyn Park. Moments later, a proactive police squad arrived there after hearing about the initial shooting. He then ran away from authorities, and detectives found multiple weapons, ammunition, and several notebooks detailing his hit list in his vehicle. The crime striking the nerve of those
He got spooked and he had to leave his car, and he had his whole little notebook in there.
in law enforcement.
And sad thing is there's going to be a bunch of churches that are praying for this person's delivery, that he's doing God's work and will be declared a hero by people. And you know, if he dies in prison, they'll call him a martyr. That's a sad state of affairs.
And the legal system.
And this was a political assassination, which is not a word we use very often in the United States, let alone here in Minnesota. It's a chilling attack on our democracy, on our way of life. It's only the most recent example of violent political extremism in this country.
Now, Belter will remain in federal custody ahead of his next court appearance on June 27th. Several of his family members were in court today. I did ask them if they had anything to say, but they said no comment. Reporting live tonight, Mary McGuire, Fox.
They didn't mention in that story, but his wife was also detained with, you know, just a pistol, couple of grand, and all the passports in a bag in the trunk for no reason.
Well, he's world travelers. He's so interested in all the cultures. He wants to go and travel and see them.
When I go to Tops to get some more food, I always bring my passports, a pistol, and $3,000 in cash or whatever it was. Yeah. Just you know, normal shit. I had a video. There's a bunch of TikToks going around. Apparently CNN and everybody is blaming the looting and stuff like that, and the small amount of looting that has been taking place in LA on Black people. I don't know if y'all realize this. We already told everybody we tagged out. We're not doing protests, not this time.
Yeah.
So do not come and say we looted. We intentionally did not go because we knew this shit was going to happen. Y'all was going to blame us for everything, and y'all was going to get violent. Notice how they've been relatively not as violent as they have been because we did not show up to get our asses whooped. So y'all have fun doing whatever this like Mexican standoff that y'all are doing with because we didn't get that. They just started lighting us up. So we stayed home this time.
And Mikey, when I did that, it was 4 hours where I watched the live raw feed from a news reporter helicopter looking around for stuff. I did not see one African American that entire time.
I told y'all we stayed home. We not playing. The elders spoke and they said, "Stay your Black ass in the house." And we was like, okay. No, for real though. Do not leave the house. Just don't leave the house for the first one and watch what happened. And then nothing happened to nobody. We're like, ooh, that's curious. And then we just stopped showing up. And what do you know? None of these protests all over aren't getting tear. Only the places where ICE is, was there anything. But all the rest of the protests were just fine.
Those radical Democrats have those sanctuary states. They're destroying America. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and
now they're trying to say that we the ones stealing shit. Nah, brother, we was already in the crib. Nope, I was on Madden the whole time. Nope, and my brother was on 2K the whole time, and the smoke detector was going off in my stream the whole time. Nah, brother, y'all ain't getting us. I also had one about the this is Captain Steve. He's got a pretty big YouTube channel.
Oh,
He's a pilot.
Yeah.
His coverage on the Air India 171 flight. And he said that in a second video that they have here. Now I'm talking too much about it. I've done so much describing. I've interested myself. But yeah, let's get to
talk about the rat.
Leaning to, I wasn't firmly in this camp, but I was leaning towards it, was they had the flaps set properly for takeoff. When they rotated, everything was normal. at the time that the pilot flying would ask for gear up, the other pilot mistakenly grabbed the flap handle and prematurely raised the flaps. That was, at the time, the thing that seemed most evident to me, because the landing gear stayed down for the entire duration, short as it would be, for this flight. And there was no evidence out of the engines that was there any sort of failure, no fire, no sparks, no smoke coming out of the engines, a real head scratcher on that front. And so I thought maybe it was simply they grabbed the wrong handle and prematurely raised the flaps. I was leaning heavily into that department. I'm going to change my analysis now because of this new video, and it's based on the original video that all of us watched. And we saw two main videos, the one where the airplane was running down the runway and then rotated and took off, and you saw it crash in the distance. The other one was a video that was taken from kind of a rooftop or a window, where the airplane came from left to right and then descended down out of the screen, and then you saw the fireball there. I'm going to show you that video in its original form. Now, what do I mean by that? The video that we all saw and every major news network on the planet went with was a video of a video, and the quality was extremely poor. The original that was presumably taken from an iPhone or some sort of cell phone is much sharper. It's not a terrific video by any means, but it's much sharper than the video of the other video. So what happened was some cameraman was in front of a screen watching the video play.
Yes.
So the audio is not very good and the visual is not very good. The original is going to show us something that's going to change this whole thing. Let me run the video that I'm talking about, and you take a look at it, and then I'll talk about it after it runs.
It's a prop noise.
Yeah. Because you guys got to remember, that's a jet. And that's a big jet, and it was right over their head, and you didn't hear a whoosh like from the jet engines or that high-pitched whine. It sounded like a prop engine.
It sounds like a Cessna, right? One of those things, you know, those buzzy things, right?
Can you hear how crisp that is? You didn't hear that. You didn't hear the actual crash on the original video. You could see it, but you didn't hear it. Why? Because there was people talking in the background. This original is much sharper. Now you're looking at it going, well, I've seen that a bunch of times. You haven't seen it this clearly a bunch of times. Now I want to run it again, and I want you to, we're going to zoom in on something, and I'm going to show you something and explain it, because this is a total game changer.
Yep,
right
there it is.
There, my friends. Take a look. We've circled it for you. Now, a lot of people have been talking about the theory that the Rat had deployed. What's a Rat? It's a ram air turbine. It deploys on many airplanes have it. 787 has it. 777 has it. The Rat is basically just behind the wing on the right side of the airplane. There's a little door that holds it in, and it looks like a little Evinrude motor. It's a little two-bladed prop, and the purpose of the ram air turbine is to provide electrical and hydraulic pressure for the aircraft in an extreme emergency. On the 787 in particular, there's three things that will deploy the Rat, and it deploys automatically: a massive electrical failure, a massive hydraulic failure, or a dual engine failure. So any one of those three things will cause that Rat to deploy. So up to this point, all of the theories that we've had were based on maybe one.
Paul says, I just watched this video. Yo, this guy is great.
Bit of
Now,
evidence, but not.
I have to say as well, one of the things I appreciate about it is that he's very careful about his words. Unfortunately, he's learning that people slice and dice what you say and pick out things. So he, you know, he explains the limitations on things there, but people tend to not hear his long, detailed explanation, right? He's had subsequent things where he's talked about refinement of stuff. One thing in particular, I think that he's done is when you see people claiming, oh, they found, here's the root cause.
Right.
An official thing. Guess what? You know, root cause is not something that's stated in aviation disaster reports. That's not a preliminary thing. That's not an investigatory thing. They don't say root cause. If someone's saying the root cause is blah 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 blah, the pilot blah 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 blah, you know, jihadist blah blah blah, whatever the thing is, that's one of the signs you can say that they don't know what they're talking about is fake. But as I say, his accuracy. The thing about that rat is, as you say, those are three things that can cause. And by the way, combination of those three things can also deploy the rat. And why? Because you need pressure to try to get back some control over your things. You need electricity when you have a massive electrical failure. To try to get the plane to at least glide to a potentially safer spot.
At least if you get some hydraulic pressure, at least you can control the glide. But if you got no flaps, no ailerons, no rudder,
two or maybe 1.5, but it's hard to go with a theory when you've only got like one thing to go on. I'm going to give you 3 or more for why I think the rat deployed and why I think this was a dual engine failure. I'm firmly in that camp now. Number 1 is right here. Take a look at your screen. In the middle of the circle, you see kind of it looks like a protrusion on the belly of the aircraft. And I'm not trying to be salacious with this. It looks like a nipple at the bottom of the airplane. Right? Just underneath that, you see a little gray dot. It almost says artifact on the screen. That little gray dot is the rat. This is visual confirmation that the rat deployed. What is that protrusion underneath the airplane? That's the door that opened to allow the rat to come down. And you can see it here. You can see it very vividly on this screen. It's not the best. It's kind of grainy still. It's at least one bit of the puzzle here. So that's evidence number 1. Now, evidence number 2 is with our ears, all right? Because a rat makes a very distinctive sound. And in that original video, the audio was so bad, you couldn't really catch it. But in this, the one that they were showing us, the original one, it's much more clear. And it sounds like a prop airplane going by, or a real high-pitched squeal, because it's a 2-bladed prop and it's basically spinning at the speed of sound to produce the energy, the electrical and the hydraulic that it needs to. So let me play this. I'm going to put it on a loop. I think we're going to listen to it 3 times. Listen for that high-pitched prop sound. Remember, this is a jet. It's not a prop. As it goes by, listen. Okay, it sounded like it. If you weren't looking at it, it sounded like a single engine prop airplane just flew by. You might look up and expect to see a little Cessna going by. And in fact, it is a little bitty Cessna. It's a little bitty 2-bladed prop that's spinning as fast as it possibly can. Now, the rat was originally designed, and it's on all these airplanes, as the last resort, the absolute last resort. It's assuming that there's going to be basically a dual engine failure at altitude. Let's say you're at 30,000 feet, both engines flame out for some reason.
I'll give this like not 30 seconds.
You start descending down, you're looking for a suitable field, you're out of hydraulics and you're out of electric because both of your engines have stopped running. Maybe the auxiliary power unit isn't running, but it's not going to get you any thrust either. And so let's assume that's out. At that point, you've got to have some sort of electrical so you can talk on the radios, so you can have shoot some sort of an approach and get some sort of instrumentation in front of you. And then you have to have some sort of hydraulics to still fly the airplane. It gives you the minimum of all of those categories that I just mentioned, but it does work. But it's meant for the airplane to kind of cruise down now and find a place to land. It's not designed for an airplane that's at 400 or 500 feet and loses all power. There's no time to get the engines relit, and it's not going to provide much benefit to them, except it's evidence for us that it was a dual engine failure, most likely. Could it have been an electrical issue? Could it have been a hydraulic issue? Yeah, it could have been either one of those. But I think the fact that the airplane is now just kind of mushing out of the sky gives us the idea that it was a dual engine failure, but we can hear it. So there's confirmation number 2. We've got the visual that we.
Yeah, and then he says the last piece of confirmation is the guy who survived. He said he heard it deploy. He heard like a loud bang.
Now, subsequent postings he's done or visual things he's done is he's insisted saying this is speculation. We don't have the black box, so don't treat it as gospel. And he's as you heard, he's hedging his bets and saying this is the leading guess, but it's still a guess. We don't have the black spot data. And even then, the black spot data, you have to interpret it and understand what you're doing and understand the implications of these sort of things.
Yeah, because it doesn't just say, and then this happened. End of report.
and air disasters and investigations, the purpose of them is to try to figure out what happened so it won't happen again. That's it's not to say, oh, these are bad people. It's to say, how do we not repeat the same situation? What can we do to make things even safer?
We have to learn from this.
Yes, and so this is part of the learning process. So I appreciate you speculating, but pay attention, because he hedges his bets. He has other things. He said it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, and not just take the sound bites. He's very careful about what he says.
Responsible information sharing.
Yes.
Good stuff. All right, Tim, anything else?
No, I'm so very tired.
What were you doing in New York?
So I had to go pick up someone from Newark Airport.
Oh boy.
And then come back here. And I thought it was only going to take 5 hours, and it took 7.
Let's do some free good vibes on the way out.
Ah, nice.
The Otter Cam.
The Otter Cam.
This is in Vancouver Aquarium.
Yeah. Just
sweet
a little bit. Just over there.
Over yonder.
A few minutes.
Well, thanks for hanging out,
Dave.
Any other questions from the chat? I want to promote a volcano show.
I did lose a bet, Dave. I did lose a bet.
Yeah, I go to the person. The person won the bet because they were able to get an aircraft into Newark because it's suffering from acute lack of air traffic control management.
Yes, Newark Airport is on a normal day pretty awful. When the radar goes out, that's when it gets pretty bad.
But worldwide pilot associations are advising, if you can avoid certain airports that are struggling understaffed, to avoid flying into them. As I say, I do not recommend people fly into the United States, and I also think that you got to be careful of flying inside the United States.
That's why the only plane flights I'll be taking are out of the United States.
Yeah. So if I can plug a thing, we do a volcano show. We talk about.
Let me get the link.
Primarily it's on the debate channel managed by Chesh. It's Chesh and Mani and I. We focus primarily on the current eruption of Kilauea volcano. And the next one is just June 20th at 20. That's 8 p.m. Pacific. And the volcano's put on a show. In fact, it put out its highest lava fountains from inside the summit, Holy Mount Mao. It's never been recorded. So we'll have some nice what we call volcano porn, right? Lava and stuff like that. We'll also talk about some other volcanic stuff. So check out that thing. And then there is a debate pub on June 28th at 6 p.m. Pacific. And there we'll have something to talk about, politics and that sort of thing. And that's with Dapper and Mania and Chesh and myself.
Link to that in the chat right now. Volcano porn.
It's on social class. It's a big fountain, right? That's the thing. Is that Pele is in this episodic eruption where it has these periods of time every couple of days where you get fountains that go up, 300 meters, 1,000 plus feet, really spectacular stuff. If you're on the Big Island, you drive up to the national park, you pay your weekly entrance fee, and you can see Madame Pele do her stuff. It's quite a wonderful thing to see.
So the volcano show is hot. Yes, I was about to say that, and you typed it.
And we also have a fun thing where we if you've been watching for 2 years, we go all the telemetry, tilt meters, and gas output, and earthquakes, and all. So we go through all the data, plus nice pictures of volcanic stuff going on. We usually, if there's some other volcanic thing happening in the world, we talk about that as well. and then we make predictions of what we think the volcano is going to do in the next month and laugh at us because volcanoes are very hard to pin down. Although I think this time I'm probably going to be one of the better predictions.
I saw the documentary Moana. I know all about volcanoes. Maui takes his fish hook and he pulls it up from the ocean floor. And it's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, but it's also part of the thing about Madame Paley and her sister that goes to the ocean are in love with the same dude, and they go at each other. And Hawaiians try to say, "Hey, you chill here, because we like the sea, and the sea's nice, and we like the mountain, nice and nice. Just stay there, and don't fight, just chill."
Dragons don't exist, Dave. Don't be ridiculous.
How dare you, Tim? Good question from Simply Secular Dave in the chat. How many dragons have been born in the volcanoes that you have seen? Let him answer the question.
I believe approximately 0.
Okay. What if he said 2? Tim,
dragons don't exist.
But
they don't exist.
But what if he said 2?
God,
we would have known about dragons, but you shut it down before it could even happen.
Yeah. Now you say what's the standard deviation, right? And that's because if you had
what's the standard deviation on dragons born in volcanoes?
Yes,
I would say epsilon, right? It's 0 plus or minus epsilon. Where epsilon
is there a statistically is there a statistically significant chance that dragons could be born in a volcano?
I don't see why not.
The answer is 0. Given the fact that dragons aren't dragons slightly biologic? I mean, aren't they?
Yes.
I mean, the dragons, poop and eggs and that sort of thing.
Yes.
And biology and magma lava temperatures don't mix very well. Now, let's say, but the dragon emits fire. Yeah, but and then that fire is able to melt the one ring.
But what if I posit you this? It has an oil that can sustain high heat, and it kind of like slug lubricates itself through the magma.
It's like a Elon Musk rocket that goes out there.
What's that effect? Like you can like stick your finger in like molten metal for a second because you get like that little
or liquid hydrogen, the other thing.
Yeah. You get, and in fact, it's abusing that evolutionarily. It has learned to abuse that effect to navigate through temperatures unseemly.
And as somebody who's actually been up close with lava and has thrown stuff into lava, right? And it's not just because I'm playing around, but because we agreed.
He's found dragon eggs, Mike. He's hiding it.
We take the rocks back, right? One of the things in trying to culturally respect the indigenous people of the Hawaiian Islands is that when lava samples are taken, they're analyzed and they're put back. Also, the fact you just pile up with lots of rock that you don't need. So you throw the rock back, and when you throw like a cold rock on top of lava, it sits on top because it's got a bunch of gas stuff, and it doesn't instantly melt, right?
Right.
It's not like the one ring that goes on Mount Doom and it goes. No, it takes time.
It melts immediately.
Right. And so if you were trying to swim in lava, right? You say, I gotta do a surfboarding. Or try to swim in lava. First thing you'd find is it's like jumping on sand on the beach.
I'm a very strong swimmer.
You're this light little floaty thing on top. And your ability to get down into sand is nil, right? And lava is even denser than sand.
So dragons are dense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now the heat would start to come into your body and you would start cooking and burning, but you most likely wouldn't sink. You'd be sort of ash on top that would basically incinerate. And I've seen a case of a bird that was. The problem is the birds think that there's something interesting in the gas, and they go through the volcanic gas thing and inhale, and their jet engines essentially fail, and the bird
their mechanics really attract to the volcano, huh?
Well, there's stuff around it as well, or there's dumb birds, I guess. But the point is that the bird splats onto the lava, and it basically it's like throwing something on a barbecue. It begins a barbecue, and eventually the lava might be churning on the top, and it goes under. But essentially, you don't really sink that much.
Perhaps these dragons are not like running around with all this like they're not like rabbits with this like super fast metabolism. Maybe they have incredibly slow metabolisms.
Mikey,
so
let it go.
Let
it go. Let it go.
But the best thing, as I say, is a hockey puck, right? I've seen a hockey puck tossed in. There is in Hawaii. There's a hockey team, right? Polynesians play hockey, and it's really interesting because I remember like the goalie. If you know about Polynesian folks, they are big. They're true giants of stature, right? And the guy who's playing goalie in front of there, I mean, he took up.
You said hockey, and now all the Canadians in the chat are like, "Oh my god, hockey!"
Yeah, he took up. He didn't have to move much to cover the net, right?
That's cheating.
And again, you see, and so they have it. There's a skating rink there that they use, a local team, and it's fun to watch the Polynesians play. There are a couple of Alaskans that come down because there's a lot of exchange between Alaska and Hawaii as well. So Aleutian people, so forth, are around there, and it's a fun time to watch. And they have a tradition that at the beginning of the season they take the first puck that's dropped on their first game. At the end, they go to and they give an offering to Madame Pele and toss the puck into the lava. And I've seen it sit there, and it basically sits on top and kind of falls around, begins to smolder, and then kind of ashes.
Is the puck have writings on it inscribed in the?
Oh yeah, they do things like that for stuff for good luck and Hawaiian symbols and so forth. But the
darkness bind them.
And as when you do work there, and the Hawaiians come up because and do offerings. They take things of significance from their village to offer it there. They also share it. So if you're there and they think you're kind of cool, you get to sample things. Like they have really good whiskeys. Well, they'll come in, and you don't throw stuff in there. That's rude. Like if just throwing stuff at Pele would be considered rude. You open a really nice bottle of whiskey and you pass it around and share it, and you leave the rest for her, right? You're sharing it, right? And particularly if you have lava stuff there, so you can get some really fine whiskeys there. But and when one dude, I remember because he knows I'm doing volcanology stuff, and he says, "Hey, just to let you know, we know it's a volcano, right? We call it panic, but we know it's a volcano. But hey, you dudes." You said you Howleys, you have your Tooth Fairy and your Santa Claus and your Easter Bunny. Just give us this Pele thing. Right? That's our thing, right? Just be. And so it's like fine,
be nice to our thing.
Yeah, and so I that's why I talk about Madame Pele, because it's out of respect for their cultural traditions, just like someone might say Santa Claus or Easter Bunny, or other things that dads have to do with little kids.
Not this little kid. She ain't getting none of that. She's gonna get a telescope.
Excellent.
You get to stay up late, and we get to watch the meteor shower.
Yeah. But they don't sacrifice virgins to volcanoes. That's also not a myth. But
damn it,
that's a myth thing. But no, sorry. So I've never seen dragons, but I've seen vulcanized rubber burn. I've seen birds that inhale too much volcanic gas.
Well, I mean, the birds are mostly vulcanized rubber too. So.
Because they're cameras.
But yeah, check out you won't see any burning hockey pucks, but do check out the thing. And if you ever get over, Canadian, you ever get over to the Hawaiian Islands, check out some of their hockey games, because I think you'd find it to be an interesting cultural experience. How much you get poutine at a thing, a game in Vancouver, but in Hawaii you get poi.
Oh, poi is good.
I would like to eat both of them right now. Yeah, I would like present them both, please. I would like to eat them both simultaneously.
I am starving.
That'd be a good day. Oh, that'd be a good day. Imagine if you had poutine for lunch and then poi for dinner. Oh, what a day.
Yeah.
That'd be a good day. Let's have that day.
Let's go.
So I hope I tried to. I'm sorry to sort of having rain on the parade at the beginning to give you some facts on stuff. Like I said, I know that some people will take anything you say out of context, but just like the pilot, listen to the whole thing. Again, I'll say it again. I'm not justifying the actions of the Israeli government. I'm not justifying what Hamas has done. I'm not justifying the Iranian government stuff. Iranian people, yes, I've been in Iran. I've met Iranian people in Iran, and to a T, they kept reminding me, this was long time ago. Reminding me saying, we're not like those crazy people that run our government. Please let people know we don't want to do this stuff. And similarly, I know that there are people in Israel, there are Palestinians that also don't approve of what their government's doing. Just like to say, well, you're American, you must be a Trump person. No.
I mean, I am. But
but be aware. Remember, 90%. When you hear that 90%, that's not the case. 90% is just the most efficient way to build a device that can go boom. You can do it for much less, and it's been done.
Oh God, that's right. Down my windpipe. All right, here's your homework this week. Make a friend. Find somebody who's like being weird and see what their deal is. See if they want to play video games with you. Hit up an old friend. Check on your peoples. Circle the wagons. There's too many nutter butters running around right now, and there's no FBI to go pick them up. So I'm gonna need you to do some self-regulation.
Absolutely, because
I have weirdos. Okay,
I have people associated with that are MAGA, and I try to show them that it's possible to have a normal conversation with somebody that you politically disagree with. Just do that. Just show them that you're not this fire-breathing evil monster.
Dragon. Mikey, get us the fuck out of here.
Bye.